things rocking real fast. Go ahead and do a quick poll. Let's do a sad face, cryy face if you're not questioning anything, if you just believe the standard mainstream model, and then a nice happy face if you are considering alternative models of the universe. And we got our first guest request. Alrighty, Mr. Boss. Welcome to the show.
Hey,
Hey, man, how's it going?
good. How are you?
Doing fantastic, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. So I've always been wondering what exactly is true Earth?
So we're actually trying to find that out. Part of the topic of this debate. No, nobody. I don't think anybody can claim to know everything about the universe, but I tend to believe that we are a geocentric, flat, stationary plane. But we get people in here that are concave earthers.
Right.
We get people who are globers all the time. So we really have no bias. The
Right.
conversation's definitely open.
Oh, I see. I thought true Earth was like a particular kind of thinking, but it's just a true. You're just meaning like what is the Earth?
Oh yeah. Now,
Okay.
in my opinion, the true Earth is a flat, stationary,
Right.
geocentric universe with all the heavenly bodies and stuff rotating overhead. But a lot of people disagree with that, and so I think this is a great conversation to have. Now, M-Boss, what particular cosmology would you lean towards?
Well, I believe in flat Earth. Recently, I have. Um, it's. I mean, that to me is kind of obvious. What's more, I've been wondering about is like what's beyond the flat Earth. Like I'm pretty sure there's more land out there, but as far as how it looks like, I wonder. Um, I've been also pondering. Like I think there might be three rings of land outside of our realm as or our known world, and those stars, those luminaries, kind of match up. So we have our sun and moon. Outside of that is Mars and Venus, and outside of that is Jupiter and Saturn. Each of those lands has their own sun and moon, um, and I wonder if there's anything beyond that. And I wonder if that's true, to be honest. But I definitely could tell, like this this world is flat.
Oh yeah, measurably. The things that I always point out when it comes to the true Earth debate is that all the measurements and attempts to measure the movement of the Earth through space have come back with a negative result. Um, Everything seems to point that we're the center of the universe, and then you actually get down to it and start doing laser tests, long distance photography, especially infrared, and you can see it definitely appears flat.
Right. What do you think is beyond the known lands that they tell us?
Man, that is a huge question. Definitely often speculation land.
Yeah.
I think that regardless of what it is, we definitely need to get to where some joint effort to where we can actually go and explore these areas adequately and not be, prevented from
Right.
governments just because we want to save some penguins.
Yeah.
I love animals too. I have a whole zoo at my house, but I think that we can mind the wildlife while we traverse the hellish Arctic landscape
Right.
to see what the heck it is. Worst case scenario, we go and check it out, and we find out, oh, they were telling the truth. Oh, well, okay. So
Whippy.
it's
Yeah.
Earth. Yeah, Earth is a ball. We were wrong. We're all dumb, and life goes on. But then there's the chance that because they're hiding stuff because they won't let
Right.
us go over there.
Yeah.
That there's a lot more. I do tend to think that there's more land just because of that makes the most plausible sense for like a motive, like real
Right.
estate, places to hide breakaway societies. Maybe it's one
Right.
of the reasons why. There are people out here who say people fake their death. Now, I'm not an auto hoaxer, so I won't make any, certain assertions. But if there were people doing that, I think it'd be easier if
Right.
there was lands and islands and stuff to go to that the rest of the world didn't know about. So all bets are off when it comes to that.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, there's a lot of speculation out there, and like that's why I like to listen to these things. And I'm also curious, like, what's in the North Pole? Is it concave? Is it Hyperborea? Is it Mercury? Is it like a star in there? And it's really who knows, and anyone that says they know really doesn't, unless of course they're from like the Masons, or they probably do know. Do you think the top elites know how the world works?
I just don't see how else it could be. Um, if we're talking about the people at the very, very tip top, now who those people are is, obviously up for debate. But I don't really see how it can be any other way logically,
Mhm.
that they know, the physics of the
Right.
way that the things work. And pretty much we just have to ask ourselves, are we being told the truth about the way that physics worked, and what we know about everything? Or are they holding things back, lying to the public and things like that? And to that, I think you can just point at, certain quotes. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. There was an old CIA director who said that we'll know our misinformation campaign is complete when everything that the American public believes is false. So,
Mhm.
we have quotes like that floating around. It's like, my goodness, why would we think that they're being totally forthright and honest with us about the
Right.
things that they find?
Right. What do you think of young Earth theorists? That they do believe it's a globe, but they still believe that it's a couple thousand years old.
I think anybody who thinks they know the age of the Earth is full of shit. Just to be honest, I think we can have an idea of how old certain things are, but to then try to extrapolate out from that to then say, but that means the whole entire Earth and this whole entire realm essentially is this set age is just preposterous to me. I don't see how we could possibly know that. I think that's
Mhm.
one of those things that truthers are going to have to take a deep breath and accept that there are certain things we're just never going to know.
Right.
And there's a possibility that this place that we're in is timeless, that
Right.
it's just something that goes on forever.
Yeah.
And why would we assume, you think about it like this, right? We're born into this world and we die out of this world. But the thing that stays constant is that this world is here.
Right.
So I just don't know why we get it in our heads that that this world's not going to be here, or that there's going to be an end, or even a beginning.
Right.
Um, you know, I know that logically, because of the way that certain things work, they're like, oh well, there has to be a beginning, right, to something. And it's like, yeah, but
Right.
that only works out, extrapolates so far.
Right.
There has to be like a primal material, like something, a base that everything started off as,
Yeah.
and then everything turned from there. And then you'd be like, well, how old is that? We just move the goalpost and start asking that question.
Yeah.
What I think is really funny, not to get too off topic, but we'll kind of wait for a
Contrarian.
globe earther to get in here. Actually, this might be one, but just real quick, you go in on Google and you'll ask, how do they know the age of Stonehenge? And it comes back that, well, we carbon date the rocks, and they come
Right.
back so many thousands of years old. And I'm like, okay, that tells you how old the rocks are, if that works, right?
Right.
That doesn't tell you when the people stood it up and
Right.
the important stuff that we want to know, right?
Right.
Arkin, I'm having trouble pronouncing that. Welcome to the show, man. I appreciate
Hello,
you coming
hello.
on and being patient.
Well, thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Welcome to the True Earth debate. All cosmologies are welcome. Welcome to the discussion. I would ask up front, what cosmology do you subscribe to?
Cosmology, like, what do you mean by that?
Are you a globe earther? Are you a concave earther? Are you a flat earther?
I am a
Uh,
flat earther.
oh, nice. We got two for two so far. We got three flat earthers sitting in a room. Awesome.
Are you also a flat earther?
I am. I am. It's really
Wow,
funny.
wow, wow, wow. Oh, nice, nice.
What makes you think? What makes you come to that conclusion?
Bro, they have never taken so much pictures on the globe, and the other thing is that the water should be in the equator, not all around the globe, because the globe is spinning. If it was spinning, and what is the next? Yeah, the rockets they shoot, they disappear, and then they appear somewhere in the ocean or something. And I think that's enough.
Nice, nice. Just real quick, I just looked up and saw we only have 184 likes. It's absolutely pathetic, folks. No wonder we don't have a Glober in here. The show's not getting shared out. So I'm gonna need all y'all in the audience to just take a moment, smash that screen. Let's get up to at least 1,000 so we can start getting the word out there. And if you haven't had a chance already, be sure to share the show with your nearest Globe friend. That way we can actually have the debate. Looks like we got some flat earthers in here ready to have the discussion. Now, if we can get some Globers in here, some concavers even, that would be fantastic.
But
I've
bro,
never actually. Mhm.
guys, can you explain why you think the Earth is flat?
I can tell you what kind of. I've always been wondering about this, but what pushed me over the edge, ironically, is well, when SpaceX released that video back in Florida when the rocket was going up in Florida, you could
Okay.
see it hit something. You could see like it hit an energy field, and I've always
Yeah.
like been on the fence. And to me, that was like that pushed me over the edge, ironically. But it looked like it hit something. It hit energy. It hit light, and it just couldn't go beyond it. And there's tons of videos of like rockets that go up to the sky a couple hundred miles. I don't really know how far they go up. Maybe a couple hundred, maybe 1,000. But you can
Okay.
see it like streams on water or energy. And if there was space out there, it should just keep going up and up and up and up, and Earth gets smaller. But it looks like it hit something.
Okay.
Well, I'd say what kind of got me into it, and mind you, I kind of went back and forth on it at first because the stages of being a flat earther and all. You basically you go through and you think, oh man, this is stupid. I can debunk this easily. You go and you look at it, you start realizing the evidence crumbles, and you're like, oh my goodness, is the Earth flat? And then you'll really start going with that. You'll start telling people, and then somebody will hit you with something. For me, it was the Southern Star Trails. I remember it was like 2015 or 16. I get hit with the Southern Star Trails, and I really just start thinking about it, and I'm like, man, I just can't
What is a
reconcile
star
that.
trail?
I know the way the stars move in the sky.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
What got me was the Southern Crux. Just to be flat, point blank, and even now, just to be completely honest, it is something that is pretty difficult to explain on the flat Earth model. But I digress. So this was something that when I had first heard about it, I was like, man, with that being the case, there's just absolutely no way that the Earth can be flat. It has to be a ball. And I
Okay.
fell back down the rabbit hole, back into the psyop. Little did I know that there's actually other possibilities, and without being able to isolate any kind of variable, you really don't know what's going on with the stars. So yeah, even though I
Yeah.
don't know what's going on with the stars, I also can't take that to mean that it 100% means that the Earth is a ball, especially when it's measuring out flat, when we're seeing like 500 plus miles with infrared photography.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
just
that's true.
and then not only that, but there was a channel that I watched for a long time called Flat Earth Debates, which is really funny. That's kind of where I got the name from. So small shout out to Nathan Oakley. I know they've been a split in the flat Earth community, but I have no beef. I don't take sides. Um, what I will say is that I watched for a few years um, Glober after Glober come in and were asked simple questions to verify the existence of the globe Earth cosmology, like evidence for distance to the sun, evidence for gas pressure being able to exist next to a vacuum, evidence for an actual physical geometric horizon and not that it's just a optical effect due to refraction. When year after year Globers failed to answer these simple housekeeping questions, it kind of reaffirms the idea that we really are in a flat stationary plane.
But doesn't the Bible also say that the Earth is flat?
It does, but I think using religion to debate something like this, just to be honest, is terrible. The
Yeah, yeah,
people,
I know, but I think like if like the ancient people
Right.
knew that it was flat,
Right.
and now they are hiding it from us. What do the elite gain when they are hiding this?
the motive. Why would they want to hide the shape of the earth? Um, well, honestly don't know exactly what the specific reason would be. We can speculate, things like more land. I've even had the speculation that maybe it's something spiritual. Maybe knowing the true cosmology and the way that the physics work here will
Right.
allow you to have access to more of your brain or
Yeah.
more of
Okay, okay.
yourself. There's really no telling what the reason would be, but these are some of the things that I, often think when I wonder what the reason would be why they'd lie about this.
Yeah. I
About this.
listed I listed to about a couple things that you mentioned. It's, I mean, number one, NASA directly gets $58 million a day. I mean, indirectly, the government must get more money controlling us. There's probably more land out there, and also, like you said, it just kind of goes back to: are we a cosmological accident or are we celestial creation? And that's how they choose to divide us. Are we space dust or are we created in a realm with a purpose?
Okay, okay, okay. Another thing is, do you think that the moon exists? Have people been on the moon? Do you think
No,
people have visited the moon?
Not a chance.
and we don't really know
Have you seen?
exactly what the moon is, but it seems to be like a reflection, kind of, or a camera obscura, or just kind of like a refraction of the sun or something like that. No one knows exactly, but we can speculate. It just seems like an afterlight kind of effect.
What I can say is that Artemis missed it by that much. Shooting
Okay,
for the moon. That was hilarious.
okay, guys, have you seen that video or done by a guy that like visits the people that was on the moon, and he was asking them if they could swear on
Swear
the
in the Bible.
Bible if
Right.
they were on the moon, and no one
Right.
did that of that guys. So that's another like evidence that they haven't been on the moon because
Right.
no one could swear on the Bible, man.
Supposedly a few of them did, but Buzz Aldrin did not. So just throwing that out there. I personally, again, I don't really think it matters. I kind of think, man, I got to step off into left field for a second. I think they're playing 5D chess with us just to get into crazy town for a moment. That certain things they reveal to us, and certain things are like a play, like a stage designed to
Right.
get you to feel certain types of way. And it honestly wouldn't surprise me if the flat Earth is something that has been revealed and been re-released. Because there was a time back on YouTube where it was just flooded. It was everywhere. It wasn't
Right.
hard to find the information, to find and then to find the horrible arguments against it. Oh my God, it was so bad.
Yeah, they block it now.
Now,
Nowadays they block it.
yes, and it's almost like it's done on purpose that way. Like it's a demoralization campaign that they're like, yeah, we know that you know the truth, and we want you to know that we will silence you. So, um, and again, that's just what I think. That's my personal opinion on it. But so I don't. When I see something happening, I rarely, one-dimensionally think that, oh, well, that's just obviously this. Like a lot of auto hoaxers will think that anything that happens is automatically fake. That anything the news reports is automatically fake. And I just don't think that that's how it happens. I think that there's a lot of real stuff out there that happens, and that the media just kind of hijacks the narrative behind things, and then they do some bullshit.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you, bro. Guys, which country do you come from?
I'm in America. I'm over in Florida.
Oh, me too. I'm in
Nice.
I'm in Florida. I'm in St. Pete.
Oh,
Wow,
nice.
wow.
I'm in Lakeland.
Oh, awesome. Good stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to link
Guys,
up sometime. That's
guess
awesome.
Yeah,
which
sure.
country I live
Oh man, I don't want to guess wrong and be a racist.
in. No, but I live in Sweden.
Oh,
Okay.
nice. How
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
over there in Sweden?
Bro, it's horrible these days.
They always tell us that Sweden's like one of the happiest places in the world.
No,
Um,
it's not true,
what's
bro.
what's wrong with it?
It's illegal to smoke weed. It's cold. It's dark. It's many gangs, shootings. Nowadays, the electricity, bills is getting higher and higher. Yeah, that's the bad stuff. But the good stuff is that you can't be homeless. The society helps you.
Well, that's good. There's a safety net, so it's like you
Yeah,
can only get. Yeah, everybody's broke, but the good news is that you can only get so broke.
yeah. Have
So
you
then,
seen that? Thing Economic Forum was promoting, like you will know nothing and you will be happy.
yes, Mr.
It's
Carl
like that.
Schwab.
Yeah, that quote is like made for Sweden.
Now, don't get me wrong, right? Like, I think it could be possible if it wasn't psychopaths at the top running it, right? Like, I think the technology's there. I think we as humanity could like figure it out, like get together and like really get it to where the level of the standard of living across the board is much much higher, without like stomping on people's rights and things like that. I think that can be done. I just think that it's not being done. And then I think that things that like automation get fought all the time because people are afraid to lose their jobs because everybody's so broke. And
Yeah,
it's like, man, don't get me wrong, I feel for you, but if a machine can do your job, I mean, you might want
bro.
to.
Yeah, I agree with you, bro. Because I'm a mechanical engineer.
Oh, gotcha. So, I mean,
Yeah,
there's stuff that you can do that machines can't do.
yeah, it's true. It's true, and we are that in that point. So, if you're not like, it's the survival of the fittest in these societies these days. So you have to like,
Well,
yeah,
that's how it's always been. I mean, we shouldn't sugarcoat it. We shouldn't be like, oh, well, things are just now bad. No, things have always been bad. Things have been terrible,
yeah,
for all of humanity.
you have to
And
adapt.
we're animals. We're living we're pretending to be civilized. But you just look in nature and you see how everything is, and it's like, man, I just don't get why. Um, I don't get why people would think that the world like owes us a happy ending when you see all the horrible stuff that
Yeah, bro.
happens out in nature. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, but bro, still, I think that the world should be more fair. Because I think that nobody should like suffer like they are doing in like different countries and so
Hey, level 3213. I'm gonna read some of these chats just real quick. Are you God? No, I am not God. That's really funny.
on.
What is up, chat? Welcome to the True Earth Debate. I'm going to do a quick, shameless little plug, folks. If you are enjoying this conversation without snacks, you are doing it wrong. You need to get over to TrueSmacks.com and grab yourself a bag of delicious, nutritious, organic True Smacks. Support truthers wherever you can. Support what you like, or else it goes away. And the reason why these guys are really special is that they provide links and resources on their resource page so that you'll never be caught with your pants around your ankles in the middle of a True Earth debate. Don't let it happen to you. Go to truthsmacks.com. All right.
Nice, nice.
Awesome. And with that plug out of the way, I also want to remind everybody that we are doing this full recap. If you're just now joining us, we do the full live recap on YouTube and on Rockfin. So go over there and subscribe. I only have like 150 subscribers over there. It's pathetic. There's 11,000 of you on my page. I want to see some of you over there on the YouTube. No excuse. And we also do other long form content. We just did actually another live stream on history just last night. So that was pretty interesting. All right, I'll let the
Can I ask you a
chat get
question?
away. Yes, sir, M Boss, fire away.
So you mentioned earlier that flat Earth itself might be a psyop. I haven't really doesn't really resonate with me. I haven't really seen because I know what kind of psyop looks like, but why do you think it might be?
So I want to make sure that I'm clear on what I meant when I said earlier, because psyop to me kind of holds the meaning that it's something that's not true. It's a psychological operation being carried out with specific intent to deceive and mislead
Right.
people towards a certain action. I think that the flat and stationary Earth is true. I think that that's
Right.
something that has always been true, and I think that it's something that is being re-revealed. And the reason why I think they do things like this is to keep us all divided, as well as the other
Gotcha.
motive of the demoralization campaign. The thing is that it's kind of a law of the universe that all things that are done in darkness do come to the light. All lies do eventually, the truth eventually does become known. It just doesn't always become known by all people.
Right.
And so, with that in mind, these people at the top they kind of mitigate. They kind of mitigate these rules by picking and choosing what they want to be revealed, mitigating the damage, so to speak.
Right. You see, it's so hard to really trust anyone, except really, I always say this: just trust your eyes. Just go outside and just trust your eyes. And I know people are going to say there's optical illusions and stuff like that, but I'm talking about generally. When I go outside, and let's just say I spawned tomorrow on Earth, and I have no memories, but I know how to speak English, and I look up at the sky. What do I see? I see a moon, and I always see one side of the moon. I never
Yeah.
see the other side of the moon. What makes you think, makes you think, and, they'll tell us, oh, it's just a rock that spins, but what a coincidence. You'll never see the other side of it, and they'll give you some scientific explanation.
Mm,
Oh,
mm,
it's
mm.
tidal locked by gravity, and they'll go into it. But,
Yeah.
when I look at the sky, I see a moon, and, you see the stars, the same stars, and you see the sun, and the sun and the moon are the same size, and you never see the other side of the moon. So you got to really think like that. What can you really trust beyond all the psyop? You got to just trust your eyes and make your own opinion.
Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is that the thing is that I was in the last short debate. This actually came up. Somebody said that um, if the flat stationary Earth made more sense for all these different observations, and half of them were made up observations by NASA, or I shouldn't say made up, but like breadcrumb observations, right? Like, um, well, some of them are made up, like Mars being that spherical ball, like that's a light in the sky. Come on. Um, anyway, in any case, um, it's like all of this that you're seeing has been reverse engineered. The explanation has been given after the fact. It's been
Yep.
had a lot of thought put in,
Yep.
and a lot of these people haven't even realized that there is alternative models of the universe. They think that we literally are going with the one that has the most evidence towards it, and
Yeah.
the cosmologists themselves admit that we are choosing our model on philosophical grounds. Now you can. Some people will argue based on perception and whatnot because they think they see curvature, that the Earth is curvature or that the Earth is curving. And if you want to believe that, that's fine. But in my opinion, there's no reconciliation for the fact that we're geocentric and not moving. You have to accept relativity, which is begging the question theory. It's never been, they say that it's been proven, but I looked into the proof and they're basically just looking at the speed of electrons. That's not actually, they're not changing their frame of reference to actually see length contraction. And some people will straight up deny that length contraction even exists because it sounds so ridiculous, and it is. So, in my opinion, when you have these two different models, that we're comparing, and in one model, we have to evoke special relativity, length contraction, um, black hole, I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff to make the mathematics work for the observations, versus the stationary model, that has the sky just moving above us. Um, in my opinion, that the latter makes a lot more sense.
Okay.
Can I go off in a little bit of a tangent? I'm curious what you think of, ancient giants and titans and those pictures that you've seen on mountains that look like petrified titans. What do you think about that?
And that's a tough one. So when you want to remain completely intellectually honest, amongst the bias, right? Because the bias in me totally wants to believe that there are these supermassive giant titans, that existed and roamed the earth, and a lot of
Dude,
these mountains and stuff look a lot like it, like really, really freaking close. Like the chances of it are, I'd say, pretty small. So I really want to believe that that's the case, but I do have questions about it. Like, how could something that massive even exist on the land, especially if we're going with the firmament model, right? Then how can you have something that big existing underneath the firmament? It's just these things were absolutely huge, like mountain sized. Um, but I digress. I think that it is definitely a cool concept. I would like to see more information done on the studies done from like samples taken from those mountains to see
Mm.
what that petrified stuff is, if it's petrified or if it's something else. And that's something that I think can really help us narrow it down because when we look at the way things like fossilize, we see that it's very like it's strict. So certain materials turn into very specific other materials. So if it's testing to be just a certain rock and that's just if the mountain shaped person or if the person shaped mountain happens to just be a bunch of different minerals that in no way coincide with the human body being petrified or anything that we can relate to being organic, then I don't see why we would believe that that was real. But
So
if we test them and we see that it does have some correlation, then I think that's even more evidence to the pot.
yeah, I'm gonna play devil's advocate, I don't know this for sure. It's very interesting stuff. I mean, if you kind of connect the dots, it seems like there's a story over there that makes sense. And if you look at Devil's Tree, I think it's in Wyoming or something. It really looks like an ancient tree that was petrified. And if you look at the lines, they're very kind of like straight lines that don't look like they form naturally. And the science will tell us that it came from lava and rocks and stuff like that. Nature. Well, it depends what you mean by nature, but lava doesn't make straight lines like that. And so the theory is that we had these giant trees that were talked about in ancient scriptures and stuff like that. And the
Yeah.
humans or the creatures, the humans, they were as big as that. And once all the trees were cut off, all the atmosphere changed, the oxygen level changed, and that's how we are now human sized. We're about 6 feet tall, and we live shorter because of less oxygen and stuff like that.
I definitely think it's a possibility. Lacking reaction, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being patient. I appreciate you coming on. What do you got for us today?
Oh, I'm just trying to gauge the room, see where we are on the where everybody's opinions lie to before I start in on anything.
Nice. So you just stepped into a room with three flat earthers.
Okay.
Welcome to the True Earth Debate. We've been off on a tangent because we've been waiting for somebody with a different opinion to come in to spice up the conversation.
Oh,
Um,
perfect.
absolutely. So I'm going to guess by your reaction that you're a globe earther.
Yeah, I subscribe to the globular model. Correct.
Awesome, awesome. Well, as it is the True Earth debate, we believe in the flat stationary model. I don't think there's any debate that when we look around, the Earth obviously looks on a small scale to be flat. We have to invoke, giant scales and mathematics to be able to impose the globular existence. And
Sure.
so I would go ahead and start by asking if you have any scientific evidence um, for the globe Earth model.
Well, the sun, for one. I don't understand how the sun operates on a flat model. I've seen the predominant model, at least, is with the North Pole at the center, and everything being a flat disk going out from that point, with the sun circling around pretty much the equator, um, parallel, or yeah, parallel to the disk. Is that right?
Yeah, that's definitely a very popular model.
Okay, so that's what I don't understand. Because when you look at the sun, it comes up from one direction, heads over us in an arc, goes down the bottom direction the same size. So I don't understand how, if the sun is moving towards and away from us, it seems to be the same size all day, and B comes up and over as opposed to circling above and around. If there's a light that's going over you, if you see an airplane in the dark, it the lights move away from you. They get smaller and off into the distance. So I don't understand the behavior of the sun on a flat model.
Sure. Well, one of y'all two in the bottom like to take one that, or I can go ahead and address it if you like.
Take
Uh,
it, take it.
Go ahead if you wanna.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, this one's pretty easy. So there are actually multiple problems with your assertion. For one, you're asserting that the sun doesn't change size at all, when there actually is video evidence of it, in fact, changing sizes. And I'm not talking about the ones where they forget to add a solar filter. There was actually video evidence, solar filter added, pixels counted. The sun does, in fact, change size, although be it very little. My question to you would be, how much should the sun change size if it was a local sun?
Well, I wouldn't know that. I only know that when, if there's something hovering above me that moves away from me,
Gotcha.
it shouldn't
So,
be coming up on one side
so
and then arcing
basically,
over me.
yeah, so basically to make it easy, for one, um, obviously scale is kind of important. I hate to, I was just bashing scale, but yet I'm going to have to invoke it. When you're looking at we'll call it the disk Earth model, just to make it simple. When you're looking at the disk Earth model and you're seeing that arc relative to you, it's basically a straight line. You're only seeing a very small section of the sky, and so the sun is going in a circular path above the earth. Now, as to what causes that motion, we're not talking about that. We don't know. We're just talking about what we're actually observing. So, as far as the sun, again, it does in fact change size. There's also atmospheric or atmosplanic, don't even know what you want to call it. There's bending of light through the atmosphere that does cause the sun to change size and directions from time to time. Not directions, sorry. Size and, sorry, I'm losing the word. Basically, it's an apparent sun.
Appearance.
That's the word I'm looking for. We're basically looking at an apparent sun. We're not seeing the sun's true position, and that's in both models. And furthermore, the sun actually is able to set, proven by Rob Skiba, over a flat surface. So again, if we assume that the atmosphere is acting like a lens, we can assume that the sun is going at relatively the same altitude and not curving at all. And you can actually see that the sun can remain relatively the same size and set behind the city skyline, which is really cool. So the
Well,
sun does work, and your argument was basically, I don't know how it would work on the flat Earth, therefore, that is evidence for the globe Earth, and that's
the
unfortunately
thing
not the
is,
case.
but the thing is, with the globular model, you can explain it and have it make perfect sense. I thought all flat earthers were about okay. Um,
What
Scientists and
I
people
hate to I
tell
hate to
me
cut you
things.
off, but what part of what I just said didn't make sense for the explanation?
Well, pretty much all of it. If you say you have, a video of the sun changing size, I believe you, but we can observe the sun. Everybody's seen the sunset. Everybody knows that the arc of the sun it changes, gets larger and smaller depending on what time of year it is. And I still don't see
You
an
can't,
explanation for
but
how
again, you
something that
haven't.
is
You may not
hovering
even.
above me
I hate
seems
to.
to
I hate to cut
come
you off again, but
from
you're
around
misunderstanding.
the. Yeah, I think I did.
So yeah, you're misunderstanding, I think, because so the thing is that you even admitted that you don't know what the sun should look like if it was local, like how much it should shrink, how much it should even change size, and then
I
you
know
even
that
had to
it should, and that the way that the sun behaves is not constant with that.
How do you know that?
Well, because on a globular model, it makes sense. It comes from one side of the
So I get
uh,
so
uh,
spare us the globular model because we all know the globular model. We grew up in school.
okay,
We had the
fair
same
enough.
indoctrination. I'm asking like how does it not make sense on a flat Earth model? Be it that the atmosphere is in fact acting like a lens, be it that the arc of the sun is actually relatively straight, looking at what your relative position is.
because when
That
you
is
have
basically the same in both
be,
models, it would appear.
well, because when you have a light source that's coming from above, it illuminates everything in every direction. I don't see how it floating above the disk, rotating around it, um, localizes where the light falls. If anything, it should gradually fade off, not immediately cut off as the sun
So,
goes down over the horizon.
so the light from the sun does gradually fade out. That's a very
It
basic
it
observation,
it gradually fades out when there's less of it. When it is down
right?
under the horizon, which
That's
you can observe, it
so
cuts out, right?
so you seem to be
There's
stuck on
no
the so you're stuck
no
on
no
the
no no no
vanishing
no no
point
no.
for the
Look,
sun.
no, I'm saying I don't understand how the sun behaves the way it supposedly does on the flat model. Why is the light from the sun localized if
Does
it's
that
above the Earth?
does that mean it's a globe? That's
No,
evidence
it
for the
means
globe
that
Earth.
it means that it is not very good evidence for it being a disk.
So I'm not saying. Well, first off, Lead Farmer, welcome to the show. I appreciate you
Hey, how's
being
it going?
patient. We'll get to you in just a second. I just want to address this point here. So,
Awesome.
so light actually follows rules. It doesn't just spread out forever. It spreads thinner as it goes, and so it actually gets to the point that you can no longer resolve it. And so, as proof of this, you can take a light bulb, stick it in a box, and then you can take that same light bulb, stick it in a bigger box, and just observe how much light is bouncing off the walls. You'll see that less light bounces off the walls the bigger the box. So if you get the size of the room with a small enough light, you'll get to the point that the light doesn't even really hit the walls. So again, it has to be a big room, but still I digress. If the light is smaller and local, if we're not talking about a ginormous, massive sun that's multiple millions of or multiple times the size of the Earth, if it's not that, if it's much smaller and local, then it's going to light up the same percentage. So you're
Sure, but
just saying that it wouldn't, and you don't understand why it would. But simply saying that you don't understand why it would is not evidence towards that being a globe Earth proof.
no, what it is evidence of is that there's a weaker case for the flat model. That's another objection I have is that there's
So
a lot of things in the flat model that just cannot be
scaling
explained. Like you said,
scaling and
you
variance
don't
proves
know
you wrong.
why the sun really behaves the way it does. You can't really like okay, let's look at a flashlight, right? Because if it was just a sphere hovering above, it should illuminate in all directions, right? That's the way that light behaves. It if you have a light bulb that's uncovered, it'll light up the entire room. You have to put a covering over it to block out some of the dispensation, if you will, in different directions. So if you have a flashlight, right, which is has it points the beam in one specific direction. It doesn't matter if you take it further away, you can still see the beam shining down at where it is when it's not over you.
Only to a certain
So
distance.
if the sun did act like that, we should be able to see the
So
I mean,
beams
can you
coming
see
down
like a
further
lantern
away.
from a mile away? If you took a light bulb out onto a mountain, and can you see that light bulb from a mile away?
Uh, I, it depends on the atmosphere, but yeah.
I mean, what about 10 miles away? I mean, light itself has like a dimming effect the further you go, and that's
Okay,
that's the
but that
case with the
doesn't
sun.
that doesn't mean that it doesn't radiate in all directions. If
yeah,
you
I'm
have
not saying
fire,
so.
it's
I'm
not.
not saying, and your point's a non sequitur. I'm not saying that the sun doesn't radiate light in all directions. I mean, it clearly can and does. And if you go up in a plane or seen it from a rocket, even the private rockets, you can see that it looks like a big ball of light. So let's just skate past that point. That's completely irrelevant to the idea of whether the
No,
Earth is a ball or flat.
It's not irrelevant. It's my entire point is that if the sun was rotating,
Ouch.
if it's illuminating in all directions above the Earth, I don't understand why it gets completely dark and you can't
Because it's not.
see
It's
anywhere else
on
where
half
it's
of the Earth.
illuminated.
So
What's
So
you're
that?
asserting that the sun would never set?
Yes.
Yeah, that
It
means
should
that.
also get smaller, and you should also be able to
Okay.
see the where the rays are hitting
Okay.
the further
So
away it goes.
if there was an example, and I'll just throw this out here,
Hmm.
if there was an example of a sun, um, or I can't say an actual sun, but an example of a sun
An astral
uh,
body.
do, doing something, if there's an example of something creating a setting effect, but it's not actually changing altitudes, would that be evidence enough that you're probably mistaken on your point?
No, it wouldn't.
And why not?
Because there's other factors to consider.
So
You can recreate.
you're
Look, here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? You can recreate the globular model with a light bulb and a sphere, right? The sphere, the light will act the way that the globular model says it will. If you
and
take
you're
a
asserting
tennis
that we
ball
can't
and
recreate that.
rotate it, or if you take a tennis ball and rotate it around a light bulb or any light source, you can see how exactly a night and day works on the globular model.
So
What
no one's saying
the
that that
problem
doesn't work.
is, right, but the problem is you cannot recreate that in any way with
That's not
a
true.
light bulb on a flat disk.
And
It just it
how many
doesn't
times have
work
you
the
seen
way
that?
that it says it does.
How many times have you seen that attempted?
I haven't because it wouldn't work.
So you haven't even. So hold on. Before we move on, you have just asserted that you can create it on a globe with a small scale and a globular model, but you
Uh-huh.
cannot do it with the flat Earth model. But then go on to say that you haven't even seen somebody attempt it with the flat Earth model, even though
Well,
I've just given you an
that's
example, Rob Skiba, of him actually doing what you're saying can't be done.
can you send me a link of that experiment?
I can.
Because I admit I can't. I've never seen it happen, but that's also because I've not looked for it. It doesn't appear to me like it would work, so I haven't gone and looked for it. If you can do that, and you can recreate the behavior of the sun as it works, I'll give that to you. But I haven't, and that's the thing is that again, there are things that cannot be explained on the flat model that can on the globular model.
Well, again, lacking reaction, not to be rude, but it's hard to take you seriously when you say that you haven't even really looked into the stuff, but you're then asserting that it doesn't make sense. I think you're copying other people who said that it doesn't work without actually having done the research yourself. The reason why we're here is because we actually have seen the experiments, at least I have, and I have seen that the stuff that's supposedly unexplainable either doesn't happen or is completely explainable.
Okay,
So
well, can
I
you like
absolutely can, and what I will
post a
do.
link in the comments here,
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me post stuff
please?
for you.
In the meantime, do you have any other questions or curiosities, discrepancies about the flat Earth?
I do. I don't understand why the sun it appears for longer and shorter periods of time over the seasons. For one,
So I can sort of answer that. I mean, the way
okay.
how it I don't know why it works, but how it works is the sun moves throughout the year from the Tropic of Capricorn to the Tropic of Cancer. So it goes, from the outer area of the Earth towards the inner area, and that fluctuation makes the seasons based on where you live, whether it's the southern, quote, or northern hemisphere.
It's why.
Well, I mean, it's just how it's designed. I mean, it
Again,
just
see, that's the
fluctuates.
thing is I'm not saying that you're wrong, but you have to admit that
No,
the theory
we
that
don't.
answers more questions is
No.
the one that should be more
I,
credible
I
to you.
understand. I mean,
Falsification
my
is independent of reestablishing a new model. That's something that's really important to understand. It doesn't matter how many things your model gets right if there is some things that are demonstrable that your model gets wrong. Like for example, the scientists in the field say that any theory that when they're doing experiment and they're looking at the observations with the experiment, they say it has to line up to, if it's off by a factor of 10, then the whole entire theory needs to be reworked. However, and you don't have to take my word for this, you can take Michio Kaku's word for this. He's a famous cosmologist, astrophysicist. He says that in cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120th power. It is the greatest mix match. His words, the greatest mix match between observation and experiment in human history. Yet we just go with it because they're authorities.
And does Michio Kaku assert that the Earth is flat?
Why would he?
That's my point exactly. Why would he?
He probably he probably doesn't believe that the Earth is flat, so it's a non
Okay, so
sequitur.
you're
It
well,
doesn't
no,
change
it's
the
not a non
fact
sequitur. It's you're referencing a source
as a
as
hostile
credible.
witness, as a
You're
hostile witness. So you need to
you're
understand what a
referencing
hostile witness is.
what is a hostile witness, please?
So he's an authority for your side. If he says that your side is bogus or that your side is off by this much, then you also have to agree that your side is off by that much. So then if
Sure.
you have to agree that your side is off by that much, then why would you then say that that matches the observations and that it's
No,
perfectly
I don't.
explainable? It's not.
What I'm saying is, why would you reference a source as credible if
As a
they're
host
they
as a hostile
disagree?
witness.
That's
They don't have to agree with all of my points
that's what I'm
to be
saying
able
though. Is
to.
if you reference somebody, right?
They don't have to.
I'm supposed to believe well,
They do
because
not have
he
to agree
is
with every point.
understanding.
Let me finish.
No,
They do not
no,
have to agree
no, no,
with
no, no,
every
no, no, no. Come
point
on, you
that you
haven't let me
have.
finish anything.
Oh my goodness. Go on.
Look, dude, it's not. You can't go, all right, well, this person said this, so because of their credibility, who they are, um, uh, what they've accomplished, their achievements, you should listen to them in this assertion. But what he says, according to what he has studied, should be ignored, even though it's in the same subject matter.
So he acknowledged, and again, it seems the thing that I think that you don't understand is that he's got his money. You know, people pay to go to school, and they have
Mm-hmm.
investments in this. They have their job wrapped up in it. So to
Mm-hmm.
then go and to challenge the entire cosmology, which hold on, who's cutting out? Is that me? Somebody's cutting in and out.
is it me? I'm
No, it's I think it's Arkanscari.
I'm trying to connect my camera, but it's not working for me. It's just a black screen.
Arkanscari, can you mute your mic for a second? I don't hear it now. All right. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and continue. So, the thing is that you're basically trying to say that I can't point this fact out that somebody that's prominent in the astrophysics community does admit that that there is a mismatch between experiment and observation, and I know that that might be challenging for you to hear. And so you want to defend and say that, oh, well, you can't even say that he said that because you're a flat earther. But that's a non sequitur. That doesn't
No,
mean, that
no,
literally doesn't mean anything.
no.
All
What I'm
I'm
saying
saying
is,
is, and my point was, all I'm saying, and my point was with Michio Kaku, is that if you look at the supposed people that you are looking up to for this information, especially claiming things like it only works in this model, then you should know that they don't even think that it works in their model, that they admit that they're off by so much, and that they pick their model on modesty. I can use this. It is a hostile witness, and it doesn't matter that I believe the earth is flat.
no, it does though, because what you're saying is that you shouldn't reference somebody due to their credentials if you disagree with their assertions based on their credentials in the field they study. right? Michio Kaku is a theoretical physicist, which means he knows a lot about not metaphysics, quantum physics, which is fucking crazy. I tried looking into quantum physics and I don't get any of it. And
So
quantum
lacking
physics is
reaction.
crazy is because it reacts
The
in
reason why I
completely
think
different
that
ways in the laws of physics do. My point is though, if you want to say, well, this is the way it is, that's fine, but don't bring credibility to it by referencing a scientist who said it because he's a scientist when his science disputes your assertion of how the Earth works.
So no, it's complete. The reason why it's irrelevant and why I think you don't understand, and God forbid you ever have to go to court or have to defend yourself. Thank goodness there's lawyers and stuff because hostile witnesses are critical. Um,
Well,
people
I'm
can
glad
actually
we can.
take
I'm glad we could all be adult and avoid condescension here.
awesome. So with that being said, like I said before, they're a witness for your side. The astrophysics that are actually claiming that the Earth is a ball, these would be their witnesses, right? It's not some Joe Blow, right? It's not just me coming out and saying, "Hey, did you know that science and experiment doesn't match when it comes to cosmology?" If I said that, you'd say, "Where's your scientific paper? Where's your credentials?" So to avoid all that, to skip all that, I'll just go ahead and give you somebody who does have it that you would listen to. It's called a hostile witness. And again, they don't have to agree with every little point, and they could even be on your side. I'm allowed to use what they say against them.
Yeah,
Anybody
sure.
can.
No,
Anybody can.
that's absolutely
So
correct.
my question
I'm
to
not
you
saying that you can't say
to
that.
move
What
the
I'm saying to you
so to
though
move
is
the
that if you want to bring on somebody because of their credibility on a certain subject, you can't say, well, they said this, but don't worry about anything else that they said.
I'm not saying to not worry
If
about
you
that.
bring up a
When did I say
handwriting
that?
expert, when you bring up a handwriting expert and they say, "Oh yeah, this signature is forged because of this and that," but it's clearly
See,
not forged because of these things. You can't say, "Well, he said these things mean that it is
I think
forged,"
we're
so
going
we
in
can just
circles.
yeah,
ignore
I think
everything else
so.
about how
Basic.
it's not. So what I'm saying is, look, the thing is that there are unanswered questions. What is the sun and why does it move the way that it does? You've already told us,
Irrelevant to the shape of the Earth.
no, it's not.
It is.
It's absolutely not
The
because
lights in the sky
if
do
you
not
So,
want
mean
to be
anything to the shape of the
I
if
will
floor.
you
fully
want to
admit
be
we don't
scientific about
100%
it, if you
know.
want to take a scientific approach, if you have any respect for Socratic method, you would understand
Socratic.
that it's
That's
better. A better theory is the one
So
that answers more
my
questions.
problem, lacking reaction, my problem with you in this conversation is that the scientists who put forward the theory can tell you flat out that it's theoretical and that their observations don't match the experiment and you would still believe it. So there's really not much else that I can talk about with it. You want us to answer all these things about the universe that we don't have the answers to. I already said in the beginning, I don't know how the sun moves, why it moves. I can only
right.
tell you that it does.
Right.
We can create a mathematical equation for the vector that it moves, for
Yeah.
the speeds,
No, but
I'll
the
theoretical.
give my
the
take
thing
on it.
is that all science is theoretical. We
No,
can't
it's not.
prove
Well,
Science is
everything
actually a
beyond
method
any
of
shadow of
determining
belief.
Science is a methodology of determining causation. Was never meant to be a theoretical free for all where we're just trying to build a mathematical model. That was never what science was supposed to be about. It's what it has become. Tesla actually warned about this. There's quotes, several quotes that he had
Yeah,
talking about
Nikola
this.
Tesla.
So again, I'm not saying that it's not a good model and that it's not somewhat mathematically sound, but there are other mathematics that actually do work better. Um, there are measurements that we actually have for stationary flat Earth,
True.
and we choose the model that we are going with mainstream based on philosophical grounds, not based off of hard evidence. Because there can't when you're dealing with stuff in the sky, it's really really hard to get hard evidence. Let's just be completely honest about it.
So you're saying that you're making your assertions based on philosophy, not on uh, observation?
No, we measured that we weren't moving back in the 90s, or sorry, back in the, not the 90s, back in the 1900s, the Michelson-Morley and Michelson-Gale experiment. So we actually did get a measurement of stationary, to which Einstein, or sorry, started with Lorentz and somebody else, but Einstein stole their work. And then came up with special relativity to explain the observations in a way that is unfalsifiable, because he basically said that with the way that it works with special relativity, you would never be able to see the length contraction of the arm, because we can't get outside of our frame of reference. So it's an unfalsifiable position, which anything that's unfalsifiable is automatically not science.
If it's unfalsifiable,
Correct.
it means it is science.
No, things that cannot be unfalsifiable by definition are not science. If it's scientific, it has to have a method to be falsified, and then when you test it and see that it's still true, then you know that it's a scientific
Well,
law.
it's unqualified. I see what you're saying.
Right, it has to have
Okay.
a methodology of testing. If you can't test it, if you can't isolate a variable and have a control and repeat, and then have a bunch of other people do the exact same process, then it's not science. And that's why we say that the globe Earth is not science. It's theoretical mumbo jumbo. It's mathematics.
Okay. Well, let me move on to a philosophical question then, because clear we're not going to agree on the science, and as you say, you've done more looking into it than I have, so I'm not going to challenge you on that. Why then isn't has there not been any documentation of what is on the border? Because there's been plenty of documentation about Antarctica, but I don't think anybody's seen, unless I'm wrong. Again, I could be wrong, but I don't think there's been any evidence given of. I believe on most models, it's a big ice shelf, or whatever it may be on the model that you prescribe to.
It's just an
So,
area of. I'm sorry, go ahead.
uh, you said border, right? The word border,
Yeah, what's around
right? So again, we
the
also
bottom.
still don't 100% know. It could be an ice wall or it could not be. There's some flat earthers that say there is no ice wall, um, that it's just water. But I've seen videos where it looks like an ice wall, and there's other videos where private explorers go there and they get stopped by the military and they have to turn around. Also, if you there are private people that take hot air balloons up very high and they don't see a curve. And it's funny when you look at videos like NASA and these government funded videos, they always put a fisheye lens, but when we try to do like raw footage, there is no curve. So hope that answers it.
Well, that's incorrect. There is a curve.
Have
Oh, where?
Or do you want me to
have
bring up some
have you
videos?
seen a
I'm
curve
sure I
when you
can
went on the
find.
ocean, or have you seen a flat line?
No, when you're taken high enough up an altitude, you can observe a curve.
I have
What
not.
high
I've been on
altitude?
a plane and I have not.
Well, hold on.
Okay,
Let's hear them out. What altitude were you
I
at
don't
when
know.
you got?
Very high.
Because the reason why I ask is because we've also sent. Well, I can't say me personally, but flat earthers and others have also sent up stuff as high as like 120,000 feet,
Oh,
and it's still looking completely flat on the horizon. So
well, it could be. It
um,
needs to be higher than that. But there is like uncut a video of rockets launching into space. That's another thing is where rockets go. I don't
They just
understand
kind of
that.
curve down. You
Well,
never really
they
see them
don't
go all the
though.
way up, or they hit an
Well,
electric field.
well, you do actually. They're pretty much every SpaceX launch has been filmed from launch to orbit. You can find that when Elon
I
Musk
would
sent, I think it was a few years ago, he sent up a rocket with his one of his own cars in it.
lacking
Um,
reaction. I'd give you
you,
$100 if you could find a single one of those videos that doesn't. That's actually a solid cut all the way through and doesn't
Yeah.
cut to CGI or something else.
Yep.
Not once.
It's never a linear video. It's always cut. And that particular car, just to mention, they blocked out the rear view window. I'm sorry, rear view mirror. Coincidentally.
Interesting.
is it?
Now, I do have three guests in the box that have been waiting, so I do want to start cycling some guests. But first, Lead Farmer, you have been really, really quiet up there and really patient. I really appreciate you, brother. I'm going to let you talk for a bit, and then I'm going to go back down to the bottom unless somebody needs to respond. But Lead Farmer, welcome to the show. What have you got for us today, bud?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't want to talk over anyone. Thanks for inviting me. It's probably the first live I've ever joined. Here in Nevada. Wasn't educated here. I grew up in Utah and aced science. I just love geology, everything. So I'm not an idiot. But it wasn't until I was 32 that I started researching flat Earth for about 4 or 5 years, and somewhat came to a dead end where I just really don't know. And I'll never say that I know whether or not it's a globe or a flat. And I've looked at cellular Earth. It feels like a simulation to me. I've left my body numerous times and flown beyond what appears to be a honeycomb hexagonal veil above the Earth. I've seen mountainous clockwork gears seemingly operating luminaries.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, my mind has been blown. Like, I just think it's
I'm
great
with
to
you.
have a discussion and
I'm going to
and piece together, but I've yet to see a working flat Earth model or theory, nor a globe theory. We haven't seen a full 24/7 rotation of the Earth from all these pieces of junk in space. I believe in satellites. I believe in space travel somewhat, but basically just low Earth orbit. Yeah, I really don't know. And what bugs me is when flat earthers say they know it's flat and they've basically just stopped moving forward to find out the true, status of the Earth. Because I'm dying to know. And it also bugs me when globers don't do a bit of research. Because during the time that flat earthers are researching, we're relearning so much more about the other model, of every model. So we end up being more versed in, basic earth sciences. And, I work in Lake Tahoe on the Nevada and California side. And there's like 26 miles from north to south shore. There should be like 6 feet of curvature. And there was a guy, Paul on the Plane, did a video from, west to east shore. And that's only like 16 miles or so. But, there's just not a day where you can't take a P900, I think that he used, and sit it right on the level of the water, of the shore, and not have so much, distortion. And it's just hard to measure that. I'm just wondering if you had, since I'm up there all the time, if you had a good experiment that I could do on that lake that would prove whether or not there's curvature. I'll shut up now.
Well, you're obviously, since we're flat earthers, I'm assuming that question was for lacking reaction.
For anyone, I would love to see a test that would prove if there's no curvature or curvature.
Well, I'll go ahead and start by saying that flat earthers obviously have attempted to do laser tests and things of that nature, long distance photography with infrared.
Yeah, they're great.
Absolutely. And I know there's been some successes and some failures, and the real thing behind it that seems to throw everything off is that refraction that bends light tends to throw off the results for regardless of what model that you're on. And it also kind of creates an unfalsifiable position that I've seen globe earthers take.
Hello? You guys still there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happened to the host? He's gone.
Because he fell off the edge.
only Globies say edge.
I'm trying to find a graphic. Hold on.
Guys, do you like Alex Jones?
Uh, yes
Love
and
Alex.
no.
What do you think about him and his opinions about stuff?
I think he's
He's
right
been right
about
a lot
certain
of times.
stuff, but not. I think he doesn't go the whole truth about everything. But politically, I think he's right about stuff. But still, it's hard
Yeah,
to
there's a
tell.
lot of
Do you,
stuff I think he gets right. I just think he kind of gets carried away with his ideas. Um, and he's obviously a very passionate guy. I'll
Right?
say that much.
He doesn't get into
yeah,
the shape of the earth,
He
really.
doesn't. He doesn't get into
No.
that.
yeah. That's why I wanted to ask. And what do you think about him visiting Bohemian Grove?
I
You
think it's
know
great.
that I was just about to say that's the one thing I do have a lot of respect for the guy, and that the footage is creepy and
Right.
weird and should have gotten a lot more traction than it did.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I
Back
also
in
believe that.
the day, going to the DMV and videoing the new fingerprint scanners and such, and just overreaching government.
Yeah.
I love him on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So just to kind of get back on topic, what I have behind me, and people who've been on here have seen this before. This is um, the geometric horizon killer. So the globe Earth position asserts that the horizon is a sphere edge horizon, a certain distance that varies based on observer height. However, and that height, by the way, that distance is about 3 miles for a 6 foot observer. And what we have here is an observer height of 1 foot. There's a camera that was pushed right on the level of the water, is a bit of what Led Farmer was talking about. And you can see that not only can you see a platform 6.2 miles away, you can see another platform 9.41 miles away. And then you can actually, if you look hard, you can actually see the water line behind the oil rig completely.
Yeah, and if you were looking at it with your naked eye, uh, obviously you would see it fade away from your perspective, and you pull out a telescope or binoculars, and you'll reveal that object that appeared to be going over the horizon. That's not a valid argument
For
for
sure.
globe Earth.
Even more so. Sometimes there'll be swells. Sometimes there'll be a wave. And when we're talking about, being a foot off the ground here, a wave can easily block a big portion of the bottom of that. And anytime the bottom of something is blocked, globe earthers will always assert that that is curvature, and that this means that the curvature model is verified. But the thing is that even if the bottom of something was obstructed, you would still need to verify that it's the exact amount of obstruction that is supposed to be visible due to the Earth curvature calculator, and not just assert that it's the curvature that's causing it to be obstructed. We should know that the light gets compressed, and that when you're dealing with certain angles, light doesn't resolve all the way to the camera, which is, I'm trying to remember the name of the principle. I think it was Riley's principle, which can definitely explain why things are, disappearing bottom first with no obstruction, even just the way that the light is working.
So, but then why don't they just continuously get smaller? Why is there a point where they seem to fall beyond the horizon as opposed to just getting smaller and smaller and smaller until they're a speck and you can't see it anymore?
So a lot of the time, and most of the time, I would say that there's actually something like physically blocking it, because very rarely are we dealing with a perfectly flat surface. So most of the time when people look out in the water and they see, let's say we pretend that some of this was blocked on the bottom, you could easily attribute that to a wave being somewhere between us and the ship, because a small wave, due to angular size, would still appear a lot bigger than the ship in the background. And you can even have it to where a small wave can block an entire ship in the background, if that be the case. So we're just
But it's
dealing with relative angular sizes at that
but
point.
it's not something obscuring it. It's it falling beyond a point, it stops getting smaller and seems to fall below the horizon.
I don't know
If
if
there's
that's
something
necessarily
blocking it,
So that
you can look at a skyline, buildings, and at a certain point, they'll stop getting smaller and start disappearing below the horizon. Why don't they
so
continuously get smaller and smaller?
So to answer your question, and the thing is that if you kept going back, the angular size of the things always do get smaller the further you go. That's not even remotely not a thing. Nobody's claiming that that's not a thing. The buildings will continue to get smaller. The question is, why do things sometimes appear to sink? And the thing is with that is that with refraction, we can literally, there's examples of a still camera looking out over a bay, and you can see the bay rise and fall based on the different weather and temperatures. So it's just the way that the light is bending. It can make it rise and fall, sink. You can see that that's sinking. Actually, the land actually appears to rise up over the bottoms of the buildings, which is a really cool phenomena. In any case, what this means is that, and even you have to agree on this, because if what is behind me is an actual thing, then the globe Earth is debunked, because that math doesn't math out. But regardless, the horizon is something that's not an actual physical sphere edge. It's something that's an optical effect that changes based on how much the light is bending through the atmosphere, based on the temperature differentials that exist between you and the observation, or the observation point.
Um, yeah, that's again just not true. You can observe that happening. Something going over the horizon sinks. It does get smaller minutely, but it's not getting any further off into the distance. It gets
So is it the
further
same
below the
everywhere?
horizon.
Is it the
Yeah,
same? Okay. So how much is the Earth supposed to curve then?
again, I don't know.
So
I just understand that that's the way that angles work,
so the
and
reason
that's what I
the
can actually see
so the
happening. The
reason why we
phenomenon
disagree
is
with you,
observable.
again, the reason why we disagree with you, and we know that we're talking about observable phenomena, that's why we're all here. So the math works out to where if you are at 6 feet high, you should be able to see no more than 3 miles out into the distance. So this is a fact. This is the way the math is supposed to work. And this is what you are claiming if you are claiming the Earth is a ball. So the picture behind me at a 1 foot observer height, able to see almost 10 miles, debunks that claim. Because if it was a sphere edge that was making things disappear behind it, then you would not be able to see 10 miles from a 1 foot observer height.
Like, what
Does
about
that
light
make sense?
refraction, though?
That's
Isn't light
what
refraction
that's
a thing?
that's what our point is, that because light is refracting, there's no way to know where the true horizon is. Therefore, there's no way to know that it's an actual sphere edge horizon
Right, but what
unless you
I'm
have
saying is
evidence
that
that it is.
no, but light refraction explains why that is.
So
You're
you're
saying that the math doesn't work out,
right.
but you're ignoring light refraction
So are
So
you
in
no,
saying
I'm
doing
light
that
not.
math.
refraction causes that image to? What are you trying to say about light refraction?
So what I'm saying is that there are two claims. One claim is that the horizon is a hard physical thing that blocks boats as they sink behind it and other things with distance. The other side is claiming that the horizon is an optical effect that varies based on certain atmospheric conditions. Based on this picture behind me and what you just said, lacking reaction, light refracting is a thing, it is. That means that the latter side, our side, is right in claiming that it is an optical effect and that it is not a hard physical horizon. You would now need to provide evidence that it is a hard physical horizon.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying though, is that you are postulating that your argument works because of light refraction while ignoring the fact that light refracts and doing the math for the globular model.
That was my question to lack in creation. Can you? You don't have to get into math, but can you explain how light refraction supports the globular model? simply.
How light refraction supports the light? Yeah, you especially on water, objects can appear at a closer distance that they actually are.
But why? How?
Gravity. Light particles are affected by gravity,
So
and
how
because
does
Oh my
how does a
goodness.
light particle? I mean, gravity is supposed to take things down, even light, apparently. How does the
right.
light? How does the photon taking, getting sucked into the Earth prove your globular model in this case?
Oh, the same way that it proves the a flat model.
Yeah, I got a quick question, then I'm gonna bounce.
All right, Lead Farmer,
For the
shoot.
house is for the flat earthers, probably just you. What is the actual model that you would subscribe to? The flat Earth model, like square, circular. Like, do you think the azimuthal projection map is anything relevant for a flat Earth?
Honestly, it's really hard to say because we're not out there actually mapping the stuff ourselves.
Sure.
So, I actually share in your dismay at the lack of a solid model, but it is something that we're working on. That's why we're not out here claiming that we know 100% for sure that things are a certain way. And I know some people do. The only thing that I would say is that I haven't seen any evidence for the curvature of the Earth. As far as for like the overall like grand scheme, what our big picture model is, I honestly couldn't tell you because I have no way to see it or test it. I would actually want to have another conversation with you, possibly have you on my YouTube for a show because I also have had an astral projection experience, and I think that stuff like that's really, really cool. So I'd love to pick your brain on that sometime. But
Yeah, for sure. You probably can't get into it on the TikTok live. Every
yeah,
time I
not too
try to
much.
go live, I want to show you this real quick. This is a nickel iron meteorite that I found about 6 years ago in Palisade, Colorado. I used to see them fall all the time, and I happened to find one. And I've yet to put the ethanol nitric acid on there to reveal the Widmanstatin patterns that would prove it's an actual meteorite. But, it's just that got me questioning again what space actually is. And that's when I started getting back into flat Earth. But yeah, as far as the sun supposedly being 93 million miles away, that just doesn't support like being able to witness it shrinking in size and being measured to, shrink by just even a slightly amount. I mean, because the Earth is just tilting for seasons. It's not, something that's 93 million miles away, it's not going to have any effect if it moves, further away. But
Well,
I don't believe we're flying through space at like 650,000 miles an hour. Like, it just seems ridiculous, and nothing has changed. We haven't witnessed many or any satellites colliding. Yeah, it's just really weird. But it's been a long day. I'm kind of dumb right now, so I haven't really refreshed my memory on all the cool stuff that I've discovered along this way. But so I apologize for wasting your guys' time. But yeah, I would love to get into it again, and I'll have some better things to
absolutely,
say.
man. Sorry, my phone cut out because I had a message.
Yeah,
That's all
definitely.
good.
I'll have some better things to say next time. My mind's moving a little slow right now, but yeah, you guys take care.
See
Yeah,
ya.
you too, buddy.
For sure.
Yeah,
Lead Farmer, be sure to follow me. I'll follow you back, and we'll chop it up here soon.
Sounds good. Later.
Thanks for coming on.
I'll admit that I've wasted much more time with my ignorance. So obviously, you guys have done the math, and I certainly haven't. I just have a lot of questions about the model that I can't answer that I feel that the globular model does, and that's why I get into these things. I'm not out to make anybody feel stupid or try to postulate that I have all the answers and you have none.
I would
I just
suggest looking up Vibes of Cosmos on YouTube.
vibes of cosmos.
Yeah, Vibes of Cosmos. He has a lot of videos where he kind of shows the model in a very simple setting. If you look up the black sun below, I wish I could turn my camera on. It just showed a black screen. It would answer your question on how the sun rotates. I mean, this is just theory. No one knows for sure, but there's apparently like a energy ball beneath the North Pole that makes the sun and moon rotate around each other. It's all like electrical field that rotates around it. No one knows if it's true, but it just gives an idea. And all of this, it really is speculation, because we don't have billions of dollars like NASA does to really test it out and really know the truth. So that's why it's all speculation. And I'm humble when I say I don't know it all, but I could say it's probably this, it's probably that. So
I
yeah, vibes
respect
of
that.
cosmos.
I think a lot of flat earthers won't hold the flat model up to the same scrutiny that they do the globular model. I think that's just
For sure.
the worst way to go about it. But obviously, Troubling's done his homework. He's got his math right. You got gave me a lot to think about, and I appreciate you guys tolerating me.
Sure.
For
Yeah.
sure.
I will. I'll probably be around for the next live you do. Hopefully, I'll have done some more homework. We can get into a little bit more then, right?
Sure.
Absolutely. I always appreciate a nice civil conversation. You've been real civil, and I like that you don't, jump around from the point too much. So oftentimes we'll get people in here and they just want to uh, not talk about stuff. So I appreciate you
Yeah.
not being like that.
No, the pleasure is all mine. I will see you guys around. All right.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Peace, y'all.
See ya.
Peace out. Let me see here. I thought I had another one in the guest box, but they probably dropped out. Oh, well, there's space for one more, but we are going to be wrapping it up here in the next 30 minutes. So, last chance for Globers to get your shots in. I seen the comment section is just a light with all kinds of different opinions. So, definitely be sure to jump on in. JJ, for you, thanks for coming on the show, man. Welcome. Are you still there, JJ?
Oh yes, I am. Sorry, I was gonna.
JJ, for you,
Okay,
welcome to the
so
show. Oh, Nils,
oh,
welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Hello. So, what do you mean
thank
by
you, man.
true Earth debate?
So, we are debating the Earth's cosmology. So, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there's a huge flat Earth movement going on right now on the internet.
Oh yeah, I think it's ridiculous because the Earth is obviously a torus.
Obviously, a torus, like a toroidal
Yeah,
field.
like a donut shape.
Oh, nice. Like like it's physically that shape, or it has a field of that shape.
It is physically that shape.
Nice. And what evidence do you bring to the table?
Uh, so I have a model that I can. I don't have it right now, but I can explain it. It's essentially you have the torus Earth, you have a local sun, and you have a local moon, and they move around the torus Earth. And thanks to special, and you can. I'll get you the math on this, but it works out pretty well. And
Can you
also it
can you
just
draw a
looks like
picture?
pretty flat. And if you could, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, if you grab a piece
Give
of
me a
paper and a pen, I'm curious to see what you mean.
For sure.
yeah.
And just to double check, and you probably wouldn't tell me if you were anyway. You're not trolling, are you?
I mean, I could be. If I am trolling, it's probably to prove a point that it's like, hey, um, I am equally as rational as someone who thinks the Earth is flat because I have equally as much evidence.
Nice. Well, your point would be lost on us because we definitely have more evidence than none. So,
Oh, cool. Can you what shape do you guys think the Earth is?
I tend to think it's
Right.
a flat stationary plane.
Oh, so is it an infinite plane or is it like a disk or is it like
Could be.
So
Could be infinite.
we can't explore past the 60th south parallel. So we're pretty
oh
much
why?
stuck in the known
The
circle of
government
our
doesn't let
world.
us.
Oh,
Yeah, the Antarctic
Nobody's ever
Treaty.
circumnavigated the Earth north to south. They've only
oh no, we
circumnavigated the
haven't
Earth
people
east to west.
said that they have, or do you not believe them?
Like
Yeah,
who?
people have said that they have, but if you track the route, it actually doesn't go across the Antarctic continent and pops up on
How'd
the
you
other
track the
side.
route?
So
Were you with them? Or did you just
they
Google the
actually
route?
admitted You just Google it. Their routes are admitted.
I have a
Okay,
question
what
for
are?
Glovers.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll give up the charade. I am a Glober, actually. Fun fact.
I
Okay,
can
I
well,
tell.
I have a
pulled off the
question. I have a
veil,
question.
but I'm sure it was good.
One missing piece. Fire away, man. You've been real patient.
Yep.
Okay, so my question for any Glober is kind of about shadows. So if you look at okay, the best way for me to make this make sense, if you look at your own shadow or any shadow that's on Earth, so any shadow is going to pretty much match the object, correct?
Uh,
There's no such thing as a shadow that is smaller than the object. Uh, so how
Oh, this is
would
gonna be good.
the shadow of the moon? Okay, so if you Google it, so if you just Google it, the actual size of the moon to Google is about 1,100 uh, miles. Okay,
yeah, it's
and
like about like a third of the Earth or something like that.
okay, so if you just go ahead and Google the shadow, how big the shadow of the moon is whenever there's an eclipse, it says that it's 300 miles. So to me, that alone doesn't make sense at all. And so how would it be, you know, if it says that it's 1,100 miles and the shadow's 300 miles, how does that make sense?
Don't shadows get like if I cast a shadow on something further away, won't the shadow be like more fuzzy and blurry and spread out or something? And also, won't the light going around my hand, because light acts like a wave, like the light going around in my hand or around the moon would also still illuminate the shadow somewhat, and you wouldn't be able to tell unless like you were on the edge of the shadow, and even then, would the difference be that great?
So like, so so a
I'm
light
thinking of how you would
that
test this, right?
is
You're saying why don't we see the shadow? Have you been like
right.
under the moon
No,
on the
no,
edge
no,
where
no,
you could see the shadow,
no.
or
Why is the shadow so small? That's my
You cut
question is
out.
why is the shadow
oh,
so small?
why is the shadow so small? You know what? That's a good question,
Because the
but
sun
you know what?
is,
I
they
will
say
figure
it's
out.
93
While I
million
figure that
miles
out,
away.
can I ask you guys a question to so we can both have a question we're working on?
Sure.
Why does the sun set? Like, how do you
Light
explain that
refraction.
in a flat Earth? It's just light
Light
refraction. How
refraction.
does the light refract?
It's smaller than they say it is. The
Okay,
sun is
so you
smaller
can
than they
say
say
that,
it
but can you
is.
show me
I'm
like the
gonna give you
math and
some
stuff?
homework. So I'll give you some homework. Rob Skiba, you go on YouTube, look up the Rob Skiba YouTube channel, or you could
Oh,
just
I
search Rob Skiba
oh
sunset flat
I've
Earth.
watched I've
Yeah.
watched like a whole bunch of flat Earth videos. None of them
So have you
are
seen the one where
mathematic.
they take a Fresnel lens and they have a cardboard cutout of a sun and they just slide it back on a table, and then when you look from the perspective of an observer on the ground, it actually looks like the sun is setting and not changing sizes? Have you seen that one?
In like a very like you can create an illusion in a very controlled environment. Is that what he's doing,
You can create a sunset
or is he?
on a flat surface, yeah.
Okay, then I do have a question though. Why can I see the sunset twice if I am standing up and then I immediately lie down?
Well, obviously you could see further when you were standing up.
No, but the sun disappears. Oh, okay, so you can just see further. That's why.
Yeah.
Does vision just stop at a certain point?
So
Like,
that's
how
actually a
does
good
vision work
question.
in this model?
So when you can actually model this pretty easily, you can actually get like a long table or something and like get like right down eye level with the table and then just raise up, and you'll actually see that. I'm sorry, what was the question again? It's been a long day.
If I'm lying down, I can see the sunset, and then I
Oh
stand
yeah,
up
yeah.
and I see the sunset
Yeah,
again.
why can you see further? Yeah, so it's simple angles. When you're up higher, you have a higher angle to be able to see more of the surface.
Of the sun?
No, of the surface of the Earth, which is the sun's going to be over the surface of. So
Oh, it's
it's, again,
always
a
over the
simple angle.
surface of the Earth? Then why does it
Yeah,
disappear over the horizon? You
because
said
of perspective.
refraction, And
Refraction and
perspective.
perspective, right?
Okay, but wouldn't an easier, like, simpler answer be, oh, what if the Earth was round and it moved around, and then you could explain other phenomena as well? Like
It would be,
you're
but then you
saying,
would have to explain. But then you would have to explain why, if we are curving, why we are not ever, or I shouldn't say not ever, but why we very often see way past the geometric horizon, and why sometimes the geometric horizon can appear closer. So
oh yeah,
again, it's
that's
just
because yeah,
optical phenomena.
so why couldn't that be
It doesn't
optical
prove
phenomena?
the curvature,
Okay, but that could be, so it's all optical phenomena. Everything that you
right?
see that seems to be round Earth is optical phenomena.
I mean, yeah,
Then how does anyone convince you of anything? If someone was like, "Oh, this is proof that the Earth is round," you just say it's optical
with
phenomena.
scientific measurements and observation.
What measurements do you need?
So if you could isolate a variable, if you had a way that could either prove the actual distance to the horizon, or have a way to, I would accept any one of these because I know that the burden is so high for you guys at this point. I watched the show, asked Globers this for years and couldn't get an answer. So basically, all we need is um, evidence of that physical horizon, and not it being an optical effect, and
Okay,
then
and
or evidence that the Earth is actually moving, when all of our measurements actually indicate that we're stationary.
they don't. But also we
If you're
can
referring,
check where.
it,
Wait, you can do this yourself. You can figure out if you're moving or not based on star maps. Just start
Oh
mapping
my
the
god.
stars
so you're
over
unfamiliar
time.
with the new Tychonic cosmology.
Okay, so I assume there's a new cosmology that explains star signs, but
It's
does it
actually
also
really
explain?
old.
Okay, so it explains the stars moving around, but does
It does.
it also explain the sun setting?
It
The stars
explains
have
everything.
never changed.
It explains everything. So I could use it to probably send something into space.
Well, space is a basically Narnia. So that's another part of the questions that need to be answered. How can infinite or a near infinite vacuum exist next to a closed gas pressure system without a container?
Pretty easily. The container is gravity. Gravity is holding all the gas in.
So can you demonstrate this? Has this been demonstrated ever?
Yeah, on Earth.
No, I mean, so that's actually a let me think of the exact word. That's a begging the question fallacy, or where you're basically assuming that the way things are evidence for what you're trying to prove, and it's actually not. Again, there's no scientific experiment. There's no variable
Well,
moved.
no.
What
The way things,
experiment?
I'm using the way things are for the proof of how they are, right?
So
Like when we look at so we can construct a model, right? This is my whole thing that I'm gonna get to
there we go.
eventually, but if we want to get to
Construct a
the end, we can construct a model. I want to hear what your model is of the Earth, and I want to
well.
see if
Let's
it can
construct.
predict, and you can build with it.
So if we're talking about
No,
constructing a
I
model,
don't care
that's
about the globe
exactly.
Earth. I'm a Taurus
No,
Earth
that's
believer. Okay, fuck it. So I want to hear
so
the flat Earth model.
So no, you're trying to pigeonhole. We're not the ones with the positive claim. The positive claim is that we're spinning
Wait,
in a
no.
space
I
ball through
said
an
what
infinite
I wait.
vacuum.
You did have the positive claim.
So
I
we're
asked you if you
talking.
believed in a flat Earth, and you
So
said
you have no
yes.
answer. So you have no answer. So
Wait,
you'd
no.
like to move the conversation on.
Wait, no. I want to stick on this. I want to stick on this. Okay, we can
Okay,
stick
so we're
on this.
talking about gas pressure next to a vacuum. You're saying that it can be modeled. I'm saying go ahead and show us. Give us the link. We'd love to see. So basically, this is what would have to happen, right? You imagine this. You have a box that's sealed, basically like a
Do you
vacuum. You
think?
suck all.
Wait, have you taken a chemistry course before?
Yeah,
Did you learned in that chemistry course probably when you were doing like PV equals nRT, all that stuff, that gases act differently in an atmosphere and in a container. It depends on the system and all that stuff, right?
sure.
So why would you immediately
Do you know
assume
why
that
they?
atmospheric pressures would work the same way
I'm
that
really glad. I'm
pressure in
really
like a
glad that you
closed
brought this
container would
up.
work?
I'm really, really glad that you brought this up. So, how does gas act in a non-closed environment?
It seems to spread out as much as it can, but if there are certain things that are restricting it, such as any sort of force, an example would be the normal force of the container, it will restrict it. In this case, it's not the normal force, but the force of gravity. We can also test this with we can show this. It's kind of the same as like a string with like tension and swinging a ball around. Sorry, I'm also a little tired.
Yeah, I completely understand. Give me 1 second. Let me accept this guest request here. Flat Illusion, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for being patient.
Good morning.
Oh, it's morning for you.
No,
It's
I'm
12.
joking. It's almost night here. It's almost 12 here
Nice.
as well. Yes.
Your volume's a little low, just to
Yeah,
let you know.
Hey,
yes,
host, I
I'm
have a
trying to
question
be
for you,
quiet.
man.
Everyone is
My
sleeping.
question is very simple. If you can debunk it, I can really drop off quickly. So,
Sure.
based on the flat Earth, the flight distance between 2 points will be very expensive than a globe-based model, right? So when Japanese
Depends.
invaded Pearl, no, I'll tell you my question. So when Japanese invaded Pearl Harbor or any military operation, high-speed jets, why do they always take the shortest route, which is based on globe?
Yeah, so you're asserting that for one without evidence. I've looked at flight paths, and to me they definitely seem to indicate a flat earth. I've actually seen the one for Pearl Harbor specifically, and literally Japan to Pearl Harbor is literally like a hop skip away. So I'm really not sure why we're assuming that it only works on the globe. What evidence do you have that shows that they're only using a globe earth model for their flight paths?
Okay, take London from Sydney, for example. That flight literally takes globe-based approach, or any cross-Atlantic from Seattle to Europe.
Yeah, they basically fly in a straight line, right? So we can see and track and monitor them. But that's kind of running away from the previous question that you had about the container, and I wanted to address that if you let me.
For sure.
Okay, all right.
So
By the way,
let's.
I'm not a different person anyway. I gotta go, guys. Thank you.
Jay, thanks for being patient. Sorry you didn't get to say much. Maybe next time.
Another time. Thank you.
So let's see what's actually happening on where we are, right? Either flat or globe or whatever. So what do we actually observe? We have a specific gradient of the air, of the densities of the air. Can we all agree on that? So as we
I
go
think we can.
higher, right? As we go higher, we have less and less air, right? So air is kind of pretty much uniform composition of gases, right? Air consists of gases, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen, right? The most of the air composed of that, about 98%, let's say so. The rest are pretty much neglectable for the sake of discussion. So we have a specific density of the air close to the ground, right? And as we go higher, we have less and less air molecules. That's observable. Agreed, right? So at certain point, we can all agree that there's no more air left, no more gases left. Can we agree on that?
No.
Yeah.
So if we go higher, at what point the gradient stops and it just becomes like what's the concentration of the air? Let's say, I don't know, 100,000 miles, 100,000 feet, right? Let's do kilometers. So 10K
So
kilometers, right? Or 10,000 kilometers.
So I kind of want to talk about that for just a second because I think that
Right.
there might be a misunderstanding, and maybe on this particular thing I might be misunderstanding, but let's equate it to something else that we know about that, like a density tower, right? Are we all familiar with
Right.
a density tower and how that works?
Pretty much. I
Is
would
that the thing with the little
assume,
liquids
yeah.
inside, and they like?
Yeah.
Let's no. Talk about gases. Let's talk about gases, right? We know that.
Well, they work we're talking
gradient,
about
right?
fluid dynamics. I mean, it's the same, is
Right.
it not?
Right.
We're talking about fluid
Okay,
dynamics.
fluid dynamics. We have fluids, but not liquids. But fluids mostly gases, because
Wait.
we're looking into
Can I-
compressible
Gas
and
is a
not
fluid.
compressible liquids, right?
Can I guess where you're going
Yeah, but
with this?
gas
You're going to be
is
like, oh, air is
compressible.
denser so it goes to the bottom, right? And so it stays bottom down on Earth because it's
Right.
denser.
Right.
No,
Is that
that's
what
not
you're
where
gonna
I'm
say,
going.
or
Right.
oh, okay?
Okay.
No, that's not where I was going.
Go ahead.
So I actually have never heard a flat earther say this, so I want to get this out here, and I'd love to know what you guys think about this.
Okay.
So speaking
Okay.
of, and it has to do with the density towers, and the reason why I'm using that is because it's something tangible that we can actually physically see and work with, and we don't have to guess what's
Okay.
happening like with gases, because with gases we have to color them and then we have to try to guess what's happening, but with the density tower we can see it.
No,
So
we can physically measure the density and the pressure. I mean, we can measure the volume
sure.
of gases and composition of the atmosphere. So that we're not guessing. We know
So in a
exactly
very controlled,
the composition of
it's
our
much
atmosphere.
harder. It's much harder. You need a controlled.
It's one of the
You need to
easiest,
basically
one
control
of
the entire
easiest.
room.
No. You
You
don't.
can do the
You just
barometric.
go
You
up.
can do the
You can
barometric
take.
pressure.
You can take air balloons. You can take barometric pressure. You can take compositions. You can measure composition of gas. It's quite easy. You have spectrometers, and like I've been working with this equipment for the last 15 years, so it's quite easy.
So
task
problem
performance,
if you
right?
work
You
with
can measure
spectroscopy.
precisely the composition of the tasks.
So
Yeah.
we're,
Go
again,
ahead.
if you work with
Go ahead
spectroscopy, then
with your idea, with your model. Go ahead.
sure.
With your model.
So whenever since you talk about spectroscopy, since you're familiar with it, then you should know that it needs to be in a controlled environment because you have to
No.
be able to
No,
isolate
it's
for
not.
different
It's
gases
not.
because
No,
the
it's
different
not.
gases
No.
and things.
No.
Yes, they do.
No, it's not.
Literally watched a
No,
whole
it's not. No,
really
wait, no,
boring
but no,
2-hour
you know,
thing
Wait,
from
what does
some lady.
What does spectrometry and
Define spectroscopy. Define
spectroscopy have?
spectroscopy and spectrometry. Define
So
it.
spectroscopy, I
Define
thought,
it.
was the study of light through how light acts through gases
No, nothing to do with gases.
Not necessarily
Nothing to do
gases.
with gases.
or through anything for that
Spectroscopy
matter.
it's just the composition. I can measure any composition of any material, anything. I can measure composition of the rock, depending on the wavelengths that I'm emitting, depending on the instrument. I can measure any composition of any material that I want in any way.
Okay, so
right. So
we're actually getting
let's
off
go
topic
back to
anyway.
let's go back. Yeah,
So
let's go back to the
we're going back
to
to
the
my
pressure
actual
and
original
composition
point.
of the gases of the atmosphere.
Density
Right, so
tower?
let's actually
Yeah.
get back to my original point here with the actual density
Okay.
tower. So when you're looking at that density tower, and you see these different volumes here, different
Yes.
densities of liquids,
Radiant.
um,
Radiant.
right, this gradient of different liquids sitting on
Gradient.
top of each other. Are they using
Yes.
different volumes of liquid? It's just density, right? It's not the
idea.
volume of
No
the
idea.
liquid.
No idea. I no idea. I'm referring to something else, but I don't know.
Pretty much look this
Why would
up.
you refer to volume? Volume isn't
let's
a
go
measure
back.
of-
Let's go.
Wait, could I ask
Because
a
it
question
deals
quick,
with
Tom?
because
Go ahead.
Volume
Okay, so
isn't
the
the
reason why this is
measurement of... oh, okay, sorry. You go first.
sorry,
go
I
ahead.
was confused there. The reason why it's important is because when we're talking about the gas pressure issue, gas pressure existing next to the vacuum, all the globe earthers want to say, well, it just stands to reason
we're not there
that.
yet. We're
Let
not
me
there.
finish.
No.
It just stands to reason.
Stop,
No, I'm just repeating what you already said. I'm not going to stop.
No,
You already
you-
said this point. No, you already said
Wait, then
this
if,
point,
if
so
you
I'm not
already
going to
said it,
stop.
you don't have to repeat it.
I
You
have-
can just
you-
go
you
next.
didn't-
I
you
need
address
no. I
my
need to build the
question.
point. You guys obviously aren't even going to let me build the point. Holy shit! Just shut up for a second,
But you didn't
or
address
else
the
I'm going to start
question.
kicking people.
Okay.
I'm about to, so I'm going to start kicking people if you don't just shut the fuck up for a second. Anyway, so the reason why it's important to mention is because you assert that at a certain point it stands to reason that there would just be no gas. Well, the thing is that that's actually not true. We can demonstrate that there are gas pressure gradients inside containers. The way that that you guys think, you think that the gas pressure just
No, you
asserts
can't.
equal pressure in all directions, but you fail to realize that even in a propane tank, there's liquid propane on the bottom, there's a more dense gas in the middle, and then there's the lightest gas up at the top. It's one of the reasons why you can't just shake them around and do whatever you want to a propane tank. So there are pressure gradients that form inside containers.
You're so far away from truth. You have no idea how ridiculous it sounds. The liquid,
please educate me.
Liquid container is pressurized, and the gas, you have such a thing as a partial pressure, liquid pressure on top of the gas. There's so many variables involved in that. It's a pressurized system. We're not talking about a pressurized system here. And gas will
We're talking about an
expand to take the
enclosed-
entire space. You cannot
Right.
have a gradient
agree.
of gas, not pressurized. You cannot have a gradient of gas in a container. That's a fact.
You can if they're different
Don't,
densities.
Don't even bring.
No, you can if they're different densities.
Of the same gas.
Different densities. Yeah, just like you see in a fluid tower. Yeah,
gas?
literally, just like we're not talking about the same gas. We're talking about the atmosphere.
Atmosphere consists pretty much of the air, right? It's air.
The air is a mixture of gas.
Some
tons of different
gases.
gases
Of what
well,
gases?
It's mostly oxygen and nitrogen, right? Like it's pretty like similar throughout.
Actually, you get up into a lot more noble gases. So you guys don't even know the composition of the atmosphere, but you're going to claim to know about like the densities and the way that it's supposed to work. It's absolutely hilarious.
We're just wait. Our claim is that the majority of the air is nitrogen and oxygen. Do you dispute that?
I'm saying that the air is a bunch of different stuff.
Do you dispute that? Wait, do you dispute that it's mostly nitrogen and oxygen?
Just acknowledge or dispute that. You don't. So you don't acknowledge. You don't know. So you don't know. You're just running away from direct question. You're running away from direct observation.
I want to know how this question pertains to proving the Earth is a ball or not.
I'm not there yet.
That we can first establish that we agree on
I just want to find common ground where we'll agree.
Yeah.
Sure, I can agree with you that the air is mostly oxygen and maybe nitrogen. I don't really know. It doesn't matter, though. I know that all the gases that exist in our atmosphere.
Yes. Okay.
Do all the gases that exist in our atmosphere?
No, uranium gas I don't think exists, or plutonium gas I don't think exists in our atmosphere.
Some gases are not exactly.
Fair enough.
Most of the gases that we're looking at in the atmosphere, it's hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen, like 98%. So, and as you go higher, the composition is not changing. Is not changing in the atmosphere. Is not changing, but rather the density of the air decreases. Okay, so at some point, the entire composition of the gases turns into ozone. Okay, because the other molecules are heavier and they just kept down. So at some point, we have the ozone layer. There's a lot of atmosphere beyond that with different compositions, but there's
so when you say mostly
no gases left there.
When you say mostly nitrogen and oxygen, I just want everybody to know how misleading that is, because it is say that there are three major constituents to Earth's atmosphere: nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. But out of that, 25%
argon. Like 1%.
It's not even saying,
argon,
but it's saying that.
It's not saying.
Oh, never mind.
Nitrogen.
Yeah, never mind.
Oxygen,
I misread.
Hydrogen.
I thought it was saying 25% of. Geez, I can't say anything. I can't even admit when I'm. So I can't even admit when I'm wrong, and you guys are just going to talk over me. Jesus Christ.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm probably just going to have to kick you, man, because you're not. I can't even get half a sentence out without you saying something. Because I can't freaking talk. I was literally going to say that I thought I read something that said 25% of the Earth's atmosphere was water, but I misread it. And it was 0.25. No, I was correcting myself, and he was literally interrupting me. It's very, very frustrating. That's why
I'm sorry you're right. I'm sorry you're right. You're right.
But in any case, my whole point was this, right? If we look at a density tower, and you see that you have all these different liquids of different densities in this density tower, and they're not pressurized, they're literally just sitting on top of each other. This is fluid dynamics. The same can be said about what's happening with the fluid in our atmosphere. The thing is that the only time, and you've admitted this earlier, the only time that we see gas pressure gradient existing without a container is on the actual Earth itself. It's the only place that it exists.
Yes. No.
That means, unfortunately for your side, it is a begging the question proof. You have to have some sort of experiment that shows that it is actually possible. So we have the technology. Listen, you can actually do this. Let me give you. Let me get it out. You're going to cut me off again and not even let me finish the point again. So this was the experiment that I was actually proposing that could easily demonstrate that this gravity is pulling on the gases like you guys say. And this is how you do it. You have a vacuum chamber, which we know we can have, and you get a metal box that's also sealed with air in it. So you have two pockets of air. You have one in the vacuum chamber and you have one in the box that is sealed, okay? So in this vacuum chamber, you're going to suck out all the air, but obviously the air inside the box should remain inside the box. The question is, what's going to happen if we open the lid to that box? Because the pressure that's going to be created between, at least in our theory, the pressure that's going to be created between the vacuum and the air in the box is going to cause the air to fill the space like we expect it would do in the actual globe Earth model. The reason why we think that the globe Earth model is inadequate in explaining it is because you will assert that it's gravity that is holding it. But if gravity is the force that is actually holding the gases, gravity is strongest at the surface of the Earth. It is not stronger the further away you go. So if the box is on the surface of the Earth where the gravity is strongest and it's not having to hold as much air, so it should be even easier for gravity to hold it. If we open up this box, the air should stay there if your model is correct. However, we all know what's going to happen. When we open the box, the air is going to fill the space.
Gravity-
That's not even close.
That's not how it works.
You're like you're creating like an imaginary.
So I had you until we opened the box. Where did I lose you?
No.
But it's not related to reality. That's not reality.
Oh, wait, could I
You're
explain it? Could I explain it to him?
Please.
So when you open the box, do you think stuff diffuses into the air? Like stuff bumps into each other and then maybe goes out of the container because it's light enough that the forces of gravity compete with other forces?
No, I don't believe in gravity. I think that what happens is the pressure created from having a place of no...
Wait, could I ask you a little more on this? You don't believe in gravity, so you refuse Einstein and Newton's equations on gravity? You think they're just
refuse Einstein's. I think that Newton, the acceleration downward is an average that we observe. So I don't really refute that. What we can debate on is what actually causes that downward acceleration. But I don't even know. So I know that one side asserts that the same force that does that causes the downward vector also pulls things into spheres, which hasn't been demonstrated.
Gravity.
Okay. So basically, what you did right now, you run away. You run away from from the discussion, right? So I started something so we can find a point to agree, and you build a straw man, right, in order to prove some kind of weird point that you're trying to make. And we all know about your gas in the container, and then next to the vacuum that is sucking somehow like a vacuum cleaner, right? That's how you imagine vacuum to be.
So you don't know what Tor is.
And you didn't address. You didn't
Flat
address
Illusion doesn't know what
any
Tor
of my
is.
points, right? So you didn't agree. You didn't
every
address.
time.
What point didn't I
right?
address? What
So
point
you
didn't I
didn't
address?
the observable fact that we have a gradient,
We do.
right, of densities. Do you
Yes,
acknowledge that?
and you haven't addressed. We do, but you haven't addressed the fact that
Right.
we can
So,
only demonstrate
So you
gradients
said,
existing.
wait, no,
answer.
I didn't finish. I'm sorry, I didn't finish.
Typical
So
Glober.
as we go higher, we have less and less gas molecules. Do you agree on that or not? Do
I
we have
actually don't
less
know if I
gas
agree on that.
molecules as we go high? You don't know. Okay, so
Yeah, I
it's not
don't know.
observable. So you say
Yeah.
you don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know.
So but you claim you have claims, you have your own models and ideas that claiming that all of us Globers lying and asserting
Well, we
stuff
have the
without even
observable-
knowing what's going on there, right? You don't even know. You have no idea what's going on there, and you
You're
have
trying
claims,
to-
you have like all kind of ideas, right?
Oh,
Right?
could I-
Flat
Protection, bro.
illusions.
Sorry, could
Flat
I ask
illusions.
a question?
So
With
you have no
with
idea. So I'm telling
Could I-
you that
could
we
I-
have a gradient of gases. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to ask a question about general relativity. What do you think is wrong with general relativity?
Well, I'm trying not to move on from the conversation too much, but just to very, very briefly touch on that. General and special relativity were literally designed, in Einstein's own words, to explain the problematic null result of us not being able to measure with optical experiments Earth's velocity through space as it orbits around the sun. So it was literally a theory. It's still called a theory, but it's a theory
Wait, no,
designed
that's
to
not
explain
why it
away
was-
this observation.
That's not why it was explained. That's wrong actually. It was used, special relativity and general relativity are used to explain why measurements of light always were the same no matter the reference frame.
Right, but do you know how they came to that conclusion? Like what the experiment was, what the people who wrote the notes were, like what that reference frame was that they were measuring that off of? The reference frame was Earth.
Yeah.
They were attempting
then
to
it's-
measure Earth's velocity through space, through the aether.
Yeah, the yeah, but the point wasn't Earth's velocity. The point was the speed of light. That's what they were trying to measure, and they were trying to measure like like the relative speeds
So
and stuff like that. And then they
Einstein
found out
Einstein
that
actually has a paper, literally called. Um, I was actually just looking at it, but he actually has a paper called "How He Came Up with the Theory of Relativity," and he actually says that in his student years, he was faced with the problem that all the terrestrial results of this nature, the optical in nature, came up null. And one of the most notable of these results was the Michelson-Morrison null result, or the Michelson-Morley failure. So he said that this was really difficult to reconcile before relativity, and this was actually the first step that led him towards relativity. So yes, Einstein actually did admit that it was the fact that we weren't measuring this trajectory that led him to come up with this theory. That's undisputable.
okay, wait.
I have one question
So
and I gotta get off
you're
here.
oh, okay.
Okay, so
Peace, go
for
ahead.
any Glober, all right, so for any Glober, um, that hasn't done this already, I don't know if you have or haven't or whatever, but anybody that believes that it is a globe and believes in NASA, okay, look up NASA flat Earth documents. Any NASA document that is a aircraft, helicopter,
Yeah, that's
airplane,
okay.
anything,
Okay, yeah. That
any
just this
NASA
question was
document is
already
going to say
already
that it's
explained so
flying
many
over
times, man. Come on. This is ridiculous
any
already.
any any
It's
NASA
been
document.
yes, yeah, yes,
Any
yes. Any
NASA
NASA
document
of
that
course.
is online is going to say that is flying over a
No, it's
flat,
not. It's
non-rotating
not.
Earth.
It's not.
Yes, it
Oh, it's
is. Look
not.
it up.
Yeah. I looked it up and it's been
No, you
already
didn't. Look it
debunked
up.
so many times and explained.
Yeah, he just keeps talking over everybody. I just can't stand it. It's almost like he's trying to ruin the show. So I'm trying to
Okay,
be a
I'm
better
just
moderator.
okay.
Um,
So I'm curious. So your problem is that you don't think so. Do you think so? You think Newton's right? So you're fine with everything in Newtonian mechanics, including. Are you okay with the
no.
gravitational? Okay, then what do you have wrong with? What do you disagree
So
with Newtonian mechanics?
right. So here's what I'll start with what I agree with, and then I'll tell you what I disagree with. So I
Just
agree
go with what you
with.
disagree with, because I'll assume you agree with everything if you don't disagree with it.
Oh man, that's terrible. Yeah, I'll just tell you what I agree with, and assume I disagree with everything else.
Okay,
So
then
I
we can
agree
do
that
that as well.
Yeah, I agree that we observe a things falling, and that the general rate at which things fall is I can't remember what the exact number is, but 9 point whatever meters per square second, whatever the heck it was. We know what the number is. We're not debating on that. So that is something that's a real number. It's an agreed upon average, and it is something that's observed. That's based in reality. The thing that I disagree with is when we start asserting that because we observe this, that means that mass attracting mass, everything's crunching into spheres, and these spheres are now orbiting one another in a nothing with no orientation.
Okay. So my question is, when when Newton used this to wait, I'm confused. Then what do you agree with?
Things fall at 9 point
That's it? That's all
whatever.
you agree with? That things
Yeah, the
fall?
thing that we use, yeah, because we use it to build bridges. We use it for architecture. Like we have an actual real world application for that. And we even use that for like certain equations, like when it comes to buoyancy. Like when people say that, oh, gravity is what we need to equate for buoyancy, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about that downward vector number. They don't actually calculate the individual gravity for the mass of an individual object and then work out all that. It's just nonsense. Instead, they just go with 9 point, that general average for everything.
Okay,
So
but
I can agree with you that
Newton
the downward
didn't
is
Newton
real.
Sorry, I'm gonna say something. Didn't Newton do something different? He did this with the moon because his question was if an apple falls, why doesn't the moon fall? Right? And so he came up with a lot of this math that explained it. And what you're saying is, well, I agree with him saying stuff falls down, but I'm a little
Sure.
confused because usually when someone disagrees with a scientific phenomena, they will say, here is where the math is wrong, right? So where is the math wrong with Newton's stuff? Or does the math work? And
So the math is irrelevant. The math model, let's just assume that it works completely. Even though Michikaku says that the whole scheme of cosmology doesn't work on a factor of 10 to the 120th power. But if we ignore
wait, what does
that
that
and we
mean?
just, it means that the mathematics the mathematics don't work for the observations
Why?
because the theory is wrong, is what I think.
Okay, why is the theory wrong?
So we're going in circles. The theory is wrong because the math doesn't match the observations or the expected observations.
Okay, what
So because
observations?
so there's lots of observations, but one of the most notable would be the speed of which they're claiming the galaxies on the further reaches of our universe are moving. If you're looking at all
Oh,
of
yeah,
that, they're
but they
saying
say
that
that you need but if you use general relativity here, you get the perfect answer.
they
Or not the
actually.
perfect answer, you get a different answer. You actually need to involve dark matter, but once you involve dark matter in general relativity, you get the right answer.
So let me ask you this: when doing science, and this is again, this isn't my opinion. This is something that scientists usually generally agreed on, and this is something that was said by someone that was pretty famous. I'm trying to remember his name though. That was usually actually Michikaku said it. Yeah, it's the same guy. He said usually in science, when we have a theory, if we are off by a factor of 10, then the theory needs to be reworked. However, in cosmology, and I'm not taking this out of context, he said, in cosmology, we are off by a factor of 10 to the 120th power, and that this is the largest mismatch between observation and mathematics, or observation and experimental data in human history or in scientific history. So instead of basically what I'm trying to say is that you're right. You can make it work by introducing more things. At that point, we can just Occam's razor it. General relativity and all that stuff was just introduced to deal with the fact that we couldn't measure the Earth's velocity anyway. Wouldn't it just be easier to assume that we're just not moving instead of introducing special relativity and length contraction and time dilation?
It would be, but the funny thing is, if you do that, you can't build satellites or anything. And then what you're going to say is, well, they aren't satellites, I assume, right? They're like something else that NASA is using to
So
use
it's really,
GPS? Or how
so
does
it's really,
GPS work? Or how did
it's
they
not
think?
even it's not even that difficult to respond to this one because you can just look it up yourself and see that NASA does do a lot of stuff via balloon. They literally send up more helium balloons than any other than any other manufacturer. Deal with more helium, I should say, not send up more balloons, but they deal with more helium than any other manufacturer in the world. And there's tons of videos and pictures of them sending up stuff. There's actually something you can look up called Echo, where they sent up back in the 60s this big, giant silver reflective balloon up into the stratosphere, I think it was. And this was something that they were using to bounce signals back and forth. So, as far as like what can explain GPS and all this stuff, I mean, high altitude planes, balloons, there's all kinds of stuff that can explain it. The last thing that I would assume is that they are falling perpetually around the Earth, which is where you were going with Newton. Newton proposed that the moon was in fact falling, but it was perpetually falling around the Earth at a perfect rate that would allow it to never actually collide with the Earth's surface. That's what you'd have to believe if you were to believe in that. Instead, we just say the truth that we don't know what holds the luminaries in the sky, and not build a completely fallacious model that's way off base of the mathematical and experimental expectations. I hope that has made our position make a little more sense. The balloonist Za, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on and being patient.
Yeah.
No problem.
I'm not gonna lie, it's like you've said this thing. NASA buys a lot of helium to send up balloons, but couldn't NASA be using that helium for other stuff? Why do we assume it's for balloons? Helium has like, it's a noble gas. I'm sure there are a lot of uses of helium
Sure. Well, I don't.
as an inert
Well, please don't
gas.
take what I said out of context. I didn't say that they only use it to send up balloons. I say they use it to send up balloons, and that there is video and picture of them sending up balloons, which there absolutely is. But I'm not going to make a fallacious statement like they only use it for that. I'm sure there's other uses.
Okay, so then why does them using helium balloons explain how they use helium balloons to keep satellites in the air, and that's how GPS works? Is that what you're saying, or am I
Yeah,
off
it can
with
work like
this?
that. Or GPS could also be ground towers, just bouncing all the towers. That's why the GPS gets really, really bad over the ocean. So just something to kind of note there. It's also why we have a hard time tracking planes over the southern hemisphere over the oceans, because we got these large bodies of water with no towers to bounce the signal. So that's how I think GPS works. I think it stands for ground positioning system, not necessarily global. But I digress. It doesn't matter what it says online. Just a play on words. Balloonist what did you have
Wait,
for us today?
the GPS doesn't, sorry, just the water thing. The GPS doesn't work with water, not because of the balloon thing, but because of how GPS works with waves, and they go into the water, which changes um the what's it called again? Not the frequency. It causes the wave to like refract or whatever. Then it bounces back a little differently than how it originally hit, so you get a bit of error there.
Yeah, they just it's literally made it so that you almost can't track planes at all over the southern oceans, which is just crazy.
Wait,
Again,
can't
I just
you?
think it's a
I'm pretty
likely
sure we can
story.
track plane flights really easily, just like
We
on
actually
like
tried
I remember.
live one time, and we couldn't do it. They kept getting cut off at a certain point over the ocean. So, and it wasn't even like halfway or anything like they made it almost. No, it was like a little bit off of the coast, and then it would cut, and then it wouldn't come back on until it was coming into the coast of the destination. So, I
I'm
mean, you don't
sorry,
have to
but
take my
I've
word for that. You can pull
Yeah,
it up
that's
yourself
a
and try to
radar
track
issue.
it.
yeah, I've seen like a flight path like all the way through, like on a map, like
Yeah,
tracking it.
Yeah,
Is
I'm
that
not
all
saying
like
you can't. So I'm not saying you can't track flights. I'm saying that in the southern oceans, in the southern hemisphere oceans, you'll see that it's actually really, really difficult, if not impossible. Actually, every time that I've tried to do it, it wouldn't do it. It would go a little bit off the coast, and then it would cut, and then it would cut back in a little bit onto the coast of its destination. And again, I'm talking specifically for southern hemisphere ocean flights. I'm not talking about northern
well, I mean,
hemisphere.
I've looked at my live flight. So I live in South Africa, so I am in the southern hemisphere, and I've
Awesome.
actually flown from South Africa to Australia, and I've watched my live flight tracking the whole way as I've flown there. Because I never watch movies on the plane. I always the live plane tracking, so I don't completely understand that.
Yeah, I'm not understanding it either. So it's like we're getting two completely different experiences. It's almost like one of us is completely full of shit. But hey,
are you saying I'm full of shit? Why
no,
would I lie about like
he's talking to me.
okay, well,
It's all good. I've actually had people say all kinds of stuff. I've had people come in and tell me they're like radar experts in the Navy and all
well,
kinds of
I'm
stuff. So
confused. What
it's just
I
a
kind of want to could I know about you? I want to know what made you a flat earther? What like what
So I
caused
had
you
a
to
really
believe
good grade
this?
in Earth space science. Now I'm not going to BS you and be like I went to school for space and all this stuff and I saw
No,
the
listen, if
problems.
you
No,
have the
nothing like that.
degrees, listen, if you
No,
have the
I
degrees
don't.
and the accolades, tell them.
I don't. I don't have the degrees. I'm not going to BS you and say that I do. I dropped out of college because I thought it was a waste of time. But in any
What were you
case,
in college for, if I may ask?
I was in college for business and finance. They were trying to teach me how to run my own business, and they only wanted to teach me like definitions of things, like what it meant to be an employee and what it meant to run payroll. And it's like, this is basic stuff. I don't even know this.
I
Anyway,
mean, was this first year?
this was like second.
Okay,
So,
yeah, first or second year, they'd still kind of keep
yeah,
catch
it's lame.
everyone up. Usually it's third and fourth year where you get the
Yeah,
actual
most
advanced
people,
stuff.
a lot of people I know who are really successful in business actually recommend not to go to college for it because a lot of those teachers don't run their own business. So it's like, why would you go to somebody to learn how to run a business who doesn't actually run their own business, right? Now that's not true of all teachers, of course. There are some that do, but I digress. That's beside the point. Um, What was the topic that we were just
Oh
on?
yeah, it was what made you believe in flat Earth. So you were
Awesome.
saying you like dropped out of university and then, or
Okay,
was this
so
before university or?
no. So I came into the flat Earth afterwards. I mean, I was, just doing my own thing, trying to make a living. And one of the things that it was actually one of my friends brought to my attention, and I thought it was the dumbest thing, like literally the dumbest thing I ever heard of in my entire life. I was like, and he brought it to me comfortably because I was into conspiracies. I was like, oh yeah, the Illuminati and all that basic stuff. If you can't see that the banking system is, has it out for us, then there's not much hope for you. But anyway,
I hope you're not gonna repeat some Kanye
no,
words.
I wouldn't do that on something like this and get my whole channel taken away. But in any case, we all know that stuff's messed up. But anyway, so they teach me this.
Also, I do want to say I don't, just personally, don't agree with the Kanye stuff. I think he is, it's the same fallacy as when people go, oh, well, all African Americans are criminals. It's like,
Right.
no. And also, like, why are they disproportionately represented in crime? Because they were kneecapped historically by like a million laws that didn't let them get good jobs in normal ways,
Right.
right? Like
Yeah, I don't
that's
even
why
want to.
like why are Jewish people in banking? It's because they were forced to because interest was outlawed in many religions, not Judaism, so they were forced to charge high
Because it
interest,
was.
and then they were taxed a really high amount because they weren't part of
I'm
that
just like,
religion. So
it's good business. I mean, look, I'm not gonna hate on somebody for being smart, right? That's just dumb. But I do agree with you. Blanket fallacies are usually pretty bad. I don't agree with them. And I generally think it's pretty bad to be a
okay, yeah. But we can
racist.
go back to the
Uh,
yeah, sorry.
but
We can go
yeah,
back to the
racism is
Earth
bad.
thing.
Disclaimer.
Yeah.
Back to
Why
the
you became flat Earth?
awesome.
So you were talking to a friend who came to you.
So I was talking to a friend, and they were telling me to look into it, and honestly, I thought he was full of crap. I was like, man, this has got to be really, really stupid. This is going to be super easy to debunk. And he was like, okay, well, go ahead and just check this out. And the first video I ever saw is actually Matt Powerland. He was a guy that was literally, he claimed to be a guy who worked in NASA, claimed to be able to actually create the planets and some of the things that they were showing us as far as their discoveries. And yeah, and he was doing some really compelling work. And basically, the question that he posed was, if it was real or a picture, would you be able to tell the difference? And after showing what he showed, I mean, to be honest with myself, I had to answer no, I wouldn't. And that's the follow up is like, how would you know? Because a lot of people think they would, and the truth is, you really wouldn't. So when you're presented with something and you're told that it's 100% real, it is important to go and try to like. What do they say in science, right? When you're presented with something, the best thing that you can do is try to debunk it. We can definitely agree on that. So
Yeah.
so when I got presented
But
with the flat Earth model, I went and I tried to go and debunk it. And so the first thing was well, obviously the first go to is well, don't we have the pictures? And that's unfortunately, that's not 100% evidence of the positive because it is possible to fake a picture. It is possible to fake a video. So that's not 100% evidence towards the positive claim. So I didn't accept that as evidence. I moved on. I then went on to work out the math. I learned about the actual size of our supposed Earth and how much curvature we're supposed to see.
wait, could I pause for a second? This
Sure,
math, what math are you referring to? Could you
8 inches per square mile.
that isn't from
That
anywhere.
is not accurate.
Yeah, so what you're going to say is that I have to use the degree calculation. And I'm actually extremely familiar with the argument, but I want you guys to be able to remain intellectually honest. And I'm not
No,
going to say
I'm
that this
not.
means you have to be a glober. It doesn't mean that, but I will say that there are several globers now that have come out, have actually worked out the math live, and left long form videos up where they work out the math like 5 to 7 different ways. One of the ways is the 8 inches per square mile. And you can actually find that the 8 inches per square mile is accurate all the way up to like 1,000 miles, which is way larger than any of the observations that we were using the math for. So Globers actually challenged other Globers to issue a retraction that was the incorrect math, because the truth is that it actually is the correct math up to 1,000 miles.
Wait, then it's not the correct math because it's an approximation up to 1,000 miles.
So our observations are no more than like, I think our largest one, our biggest one was like 500, and that was with infrared photography. So in order for it to be inaccurate, in order for you to say that we're debunked, it would mean to say that we're using the wrong math for this 500 feet worth of space, or sorry, 500 miles worth of space and under. And that's not true, because the 8 inches per square mile works up to 1,000. So it's just
Yeah, but
it's just
irrelevant
bad.
of
It's just a bad argument to say that it's
irrelevant
bad
of
math, because
if that is
it's good
accurate
math.
or not. How do you observe it? How do you observe that the curvature is there or not there? Because how do you account for altitude change of the ground level when you are trying to observe this curvature? If you are trying to observe this 1,000-mile far away curvature, how are you
So
well
it's not. So I want you to make sure that you didn't misunderstand. It's not like you can't see the curvature until 1,000 miles. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that the 8 inches per square mile math gives us an accurate calculation of the curvature that we're expected to see up to 1,000 miles. So let's say we're doing a lake observation, to answer your question on how we observe or not observe the curvature.
but it won't
That
work on
actually,
a lake
I'm really glad you brought that up. So
because that doesn't account for 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 air on top of the water that creates an illusion.
Where'd the host go? He's gone.
I've got no idea
Yeah,
because it doesn't work on water. Because on water, it's an illusion.
Yeah, the
It's an
refractions and
optical
stuff like
illusion
that.
on top of water that won't show you the curvature.
To be honest, I'm kind of more curious about the host's mindset, because he said he met this person, they had like a flat earth thing, and then they couldn't
yeah, because
debunk
you're
it.
basically trying to build this idea that because of my own incompetence, that's why I came to the flat Earth. So it's a very typical old style of debate,
I'm
and it's
not.
not very
I'm trying to
convincing.
just
No,
figure.
more
I'm
of
not gonna
And
lie. I'm just trying to
the
figure out where,
mindset.
like,
yeah, they always say
where
the
you're
same
coming
thing
from.
too. Yeah, I always hear the same thing too. It's always, I just want to know where your
To figure out
mindset
where you're
is,
coming.
or I just want to know where you're coming from. And the thing is, so where I'm
I mean,
coming
that's
from
true.
is that it is
Well,
truth.
you want to
So
know
where
where
I'm
we
coming
coming
from
from,
is
so
that,
we can know where you coming from.
so behind me, here is an observation, right? So the Earth is a
On
ball
water.
with a supposed curvature. And if we can agree, before we go any further, we really do have to agree on what the math is, right? How far is the horizon supposed to be for a 6-foot observer, do you guys think?
I wouldn't know. I'd have to Google it or something.
Okay. But just understand that you're trying to,
So the problem on water is that it never takes into account the effect of the optical refraction of light off of the water.
so you're creating an
It's
unfalsifiable
I
position,
know what you're
because
saying.
no matter what the balloonist, with all due respect, no matter what observation we show that would debunk the curvature by seeing too far, you would simply assert that it is due to the illusion of light. So because of that, because you have the unfalsifiable position in that regard, I would ask you how you would demonstrate the curvature, being that there's this persistent illusion that constantly basically leads us to believe that it's flat.
Well, it would actually be pretty simple. I would basically do a shadow experiment. So, say for instance, you are positioned let's say it's 12 o'clock exactly where I am now. I would place some sort of marker in the ground, maybe let's say maybe a 10-foot pole or something in the ground, and if the sun is right above me, there would be no shadow.
I'm with you so far.
But let's say then we go to let's say someone else at exactly the same time in a different time zone places a stick or a pole, a 10-foot pole in the ground. It is not going to show zero shadow.
Correct. Go on.
So how do you explain that?
Okay, I'm glad you asked. So I actually almost have a setup like right here on my desk, but you can imagine it. If you have a desk, right, and you take a little flashlight and you put it on one side of the desk versus the other side. I'm sorry. Repeat the question one last time. It's 12:30. I've lost my train of thought.
Okay.
How do I reconcile the?
It's a really simple experiment. So I would place a
Oh yeah, the
10-foot pole or
shadows.
whatever.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste the audience time by making you repeat it. So I got it now. We're talking about Eratosthenes and the shadow experiment. So if you take a ruler or a pencil, or take two pencils and put them on different parts of the desk, and you take a flashlight and you put it over one of the pencils directly overhead, you can actually create this exact same effect. The reason why there's a shadow on one of the sticks and not the other is because the sun, and this might blow your mind, the sun is simply in a different position relative to the observer. It has nothing to do with the sphericity of the earth. The reason why you think it does is because in that experiment, you also, I'm sorry, can you mute your mic? You're really loud.
Yeah.
The reason why you think it does prove curvature is because in that experiment, in that observation, you actually assume a massive sun infinitely far away projecting light that's coming down perfectly parallel on us. So you have a couple assumptions that you have to make with your experiment. I would ask, where is the movable, controllable variable that demonstrates that what you're asserting is only possible on a globe Earth and not also possible on a flat Earth? The balloonist, that was your cue.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, basically he's saying you're assuming the distance from the sun and the size of the sun. So, and you're going to say that there's a local sun, I assume? Or do you assume ignorance on the sun
Well,
or celestial
I'm
body?
still, before we get to that part, I'm still trying to stick to how the shadows prove the shape of the Earth.
Okay. Could I, while he thinks of the answer for this, could I ask you more about like why, like you came across this information that the Earth was flat, and you tried to debunk it, and you couldn't.
Right. Right. Yep.
Okay.
That's the short story of it. And then the long story of it is what you're seeing right here. It's right here in the True Earth debate.
Okay.
The evidences that we provide are the same evidences that helped bring me forward on my journey.
Okay. I'm just like, I'm just trying to like think this through because
he rage quit. That's hilarious.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding.
There's like a closer sun. I'm trying to imagine this model because when you say all these different facts, right? Individually, they seem fine, but when I try and coalesce them into a single model that explains it all, because I'm assuming, and I hope you assume this too, that the universe is the same, right? Like, it's not like there are two different models of the universe that'll give us the same answers. It's either the Earth is flat or round, right?
No, so are you assuming that we're like flat in space? Because
no,
we don't. Because we're assuming that basically we're assuming that we're the basement of the universe, and that
I'm saying we're assuming that a theory has to be consistent, right?
Sure.
Okay, so my problem is, if you have this consistent theory of flat Earth that explains all of these things, why can't you, like, could you just show me it, like the math and the equations? Could I just see them?
So I don't have the math and equations just to shoot you point blank. But the fact remains is that a falsification is completely independent of reification of a new model. Another way to put this in even simpler terms is that let's say you go your whole life with a mom and a dad, and you find one day in a closet that they have this file cabinet that they keep locked, and you found the key to it, and in it you found adoption papers for yourself. And then you go and you tell your friends, hey guys, I don't know how to tell you this. I just found out I was adopted. And they're like, man, what the heck are you talking about? You're adopted. Well, you've been with this family your whole life. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I found some evidence, and that I know I'm adopted now. And they say, well, who's your real family then? Well, I mean, I don't know. I just found out I was adopted. So
I'm just
we can falsify the current model. And I will be 100% in saying that we don't know all the answers for the way things really are. We can get as close as we can, and we can create mathematics for vectors that we see. And there is something to kind of help you on your journey to help you understand this is something called scaling invariance. So what you can do is if you keep all of the dimensions the same in a mathematical equation, you will get the same result. Or in other words, it will appear the same to the observer. What I mean by that is, let's take the sun, for example.
This is just a rule, like if you take AF of X, then everything will just be like,
yeah,
or not AF of X. It just everything is multiplied by a scalar. The answers are going to be the same if everything is multiplied by the same scalar.
Yes, it's a mathematical law called scaling invariance. So you can actually apply this to the celestial bodies in the solar system and the stars. You can move and play with the distances of all these things, and as long as you keep everything the same dimensionally, the observations will appear exactly the same to us. So we could actually cut the size of our solar system in half everything, and everything will still work exactly the same. You wouldn't be able to disprove it. And in fact, if you weren't told,
the reason why is because the relative distances between things are what matter. It's the relationships. If everything is halved, then everything is basically, the relationship between everything is the same, right?
Right. So I agree with you, but here's the issue with it, right? Let's put it in actual practical principle. The sun can't actually be multiple different sizes. It can only actually in reality be one size. When we're trying to ascertain the proof that it is one size or another, because of scaling invariance, we can't use that as a proof, because we could easily say the sun is half the size, half as bright, half
But if we did
the
do that,
distance.
then we'd have to make the Earth half the size. We'd have to make the Moon half the size. We'd have to make
No,
Uranus,
you
Pluto,
actually wouldn't.
Neptune, all of the
So
things half the size, right?
So I'm actually, because we're not actually able to physically, I'm not talking about the Earth itself. We don't have to change anything about the Earth except for maybe the mass of it when it comes to the gravity. The observations to us will appear exactly the same because we're dealing with these astronomical distances. We're dealing with stuff that we can't actually measure. As soon as we get over like 30 miles, it becomes impossible to tell the difference. So a sun that is 30 miles wide, or sorry, 30 miles away, I'm saying this wrong. A sun that's like 3,000 miles away and 30 miles wide looks the same as the sun that is 93 million miles away and so many million times the size of, or sorry, so many hundreds the times the size of Earth. All you have to do is tweak the math. And because we don't actually have a way to check, we don't have a way to verify any of the numbers, we can constantly change them and the math will still work. The problem is that if you weren't told this, if you weren't told this at all, then you could easily have believed in a different model of the solar system, like that everything was double the size, and you would be saying that because the math works, that is absolute fact, and that it just works best.
I think
but it's not actually
okay.
proof.
Okay, could I answer all of this? This is a misunderstanding. Like, this is actually what I'm very good at, math. So, if everything is halved or if everything's doubled, like, wait, do you know what I'm talking about when I like talk about like frames of reference and stuff like that and relative things? Like when I say the relationships stay the same and that's what matters, it's like when we're halving like I don't know how to explain this in like a simple way, but if it's like if everything is a half, then the relationship between two numbers will also be halved. So all the math works out fine. But when you half everything, you would have, like you said, you had to change the mass of the Earth for it to all work, right?
Yeah, who checked the mass of the Earth? You see the point,
Okay.
right? Because you can
So
just
we
change the
can't.
numbers and it will still work. Until you have something that you can actually
Okay, but
verify, there's no fact in the model.
okay, so like my problem is I want to defer to things like scientific papers or studies, but do you believe in any of those?
It depends.
Like like I
So,
assume you believe in stuff like germ theory, right?
I'm not gonna get into it.
Wait, you don't believe in germ theory?
Uh, different show, my friend. Different show.
Okay, so you don't believe in germ theory.
Scientific papers, they do have value, but they don't in any way mean the end all be all of a discussion or an argument. And just because one side has a scientific paper and the other side doesn't have one that's recognized yet, doesn't really mean anything. Especially when you consider how how messed up it is to get things published and not published. I actually saw a
Okay,
whole
so
thing
we
about
can't
these
trust
guys
scientists or
pranking. Well, we can trust experiments.
okay, but how do we know that we're doing the experiment right or we have our confirmation bias or something? How do we know?
Observable, repeatable methodology. If the
Yeah, but what if
experiment is
we
something
have the
that can
bias?
be,
What if the experimenter has a bias?
the experimenter will almost always have a bias. So
Yeah,
I
so
do
how do we
agree
get
with
rid
you.
of that?
You don't. You just have to have the experiment be repeatable so that people of every bias can do it, and the facts will be what they are. The facts will be
So,
overwhelming.
when a majority of people start doing tests to see if the Earth is flat, or when they do stuff in physics class, when they learn this physics, um, why do you think that like, or actually, I'm curious. So you think, because I'm trying to like put together your worldview, right? And my problem with it is that it feels very inconsistent in the
We
sense
don't
that
know. I don't know
you
everything.
just
So,
don't.
I mean,
Yeah, but you
I'm not
just
sure
keep
what you
saying you
want.
don't know to this, you don't know to that, you don't know to
Right,
this, but you're
right,
deferring to like, okay, well, I don't know the answer, so no
right.
one must know the answer, right?
I mean, that's not true. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm asking for is proof for claims. So when somebody makes a claim, and especially when the claim is something that it's an obvious fact, and especially when the claim is that this is so obvious that you're stupid if you believe the latter, like for example, people who say that you're stupid to believe in a flat geocentric model of the universe, then there should be some damn good scientific, not begging the question, not just let's move some
Okay.
numbers
But
around. There should be something hard and
this isn't
tangible.
my confusion is you seem to have this skepticism, right? But
Oh yeah.
then when you had the sunset phenomena and you said that light was refracting,
Hmm.
where's your skepticism? Did you want like a model or an explanation or math?
That's something that we can see. So both models
But how do
agree
you
that
know
there's
that
light refracting.
explanation?
So
Yeah,
both
but how do you
models
know that
agree
that
that light.
explanation is right? How do you know which model is right?
It's an assumption.
You just assume which model's right?
So, for one, yes, I do. But you should understand that one side is claiming to have all the answers and that their side is 100%
No.
absolute
They're not.
fact.
They're
And the
not
other
claiming to
side
have all
is,
the answers. I do want to represent the Glober side. We're saying, hey, this is probably pretty settled science now that the Earth is round, mainly because all of the stuff that we've built is based off the assumption that the Earth is round. For example,
but what if it wasn't?
GPS and stuff like, then our GPS wouldn't work. The stuff we
But
build, the stuff you learn in, like, if you, for example, I'm going into engineering. Uh, when would I have learned, like, I'm learning special relativity and general relativity and stuff like that. You learn that in physics class, right? To
mm,
try and solve, like, certain problems and stuff like that. When are they going to tell me, if I got a job at NASA, let's say, when are they going to tell me, by the way, the general relativity and stuff, that's all fake.
Well,
And
they
when will
believe
the
it, so they wouldn't tell you that. Like, I'm
then
not
how does
saying that it's
anything?
not.
Well, if
So,
NASA believes it, how are they sending stuff into space? Because they're
so you have,
using general relativity and
so you
stuff,
have,
right?
so you have multiple layers of assumptions that you have to dig through. It's really difficult. So what you have to do is you have to understand a couple things. For one, that there's compartmentalization, that not everybody needs to know everything, that not everybody needs to be in the know on everything, that somebody can literally build the rocket, build like the propulsion system for the rocket, the thing that says, light up, start blowing this fire out, start blowing this gas out, okay? And they can intend for that to go to space, and it doesn't mean that that's what they're actually doing with it.
Do you think
So
none of
all
these teams communicate to one another? Like, do you think the
so there
engineers
was a
that are working on the
quote
propulsion
from,
system
I
aren't
believe it
talking
was
to like
Gus,
other
I believe it
engineers?
was Gus Grusom who said it, and from NASA, that the simulations are so good. This was back in the in the Apollo missions, that the simulations are so good that nobody, not even the astronauts or the technicians, were going to be able to tell the difference. Mostly at NASA, you're dealing with pencil pushers, and that's actually most space agencies actually. So they don't actually have to be in the know. They're just getting fed data on a computer screen. The only people who really need to know are the people at the top. So that's how compartmentalization works. And to kind of prove that it's not as complicated or even that difficult, because it also works with smaller companies too. Like I work for a water filter company. I'm just a manager. I know what's inside my water filter. The guy beneath me does not. It's really that simple. So it's to just assume that everybody would have to be
Okay.
in on it, and the
It's
other
not
thing
that
too
everyone
is
has to
that
be in on it. It just has to be there's communications between these agencies, right? Like I'm sure, like you work for a company, people talk, right? Like
oh
in
yeah.
between, and don't people between departments talk sometimes?
hmm So that's actually
So
really
when
interesting that you brought that up. There actually was. So you're probably going on the where's the whistleblowers, right? Is that safe to say?
well,
Like
not
where's the
necessarily
people
where the
in
whistleblowers.
NASA that's like, hey, there's some weird stuff going on, or the Earth might be flat, or stuff like that. Have you ever seen?
Well, I'm more concerned about like how does the world even function with a secret this big being kept by so many people? Because
So
every
you
time
just
there's a
ignored the
big secret,
compartmentalization.
well,
You just
no, I
completely
heard the
ignored it.
compartmentalization, but then we talked about departments and how departments talk to each other, right?
Right. So there have been whistleblowers, and that's part of the reason why there are flat earthers. So you probably are just assuming that there's no whistleblowers, but there actually is, and there are even people who even died under mysterious circumstances. For example, the person who I'm trying to remember the astronaut's name, but he actually thought that they weren't going to be able to go to the moon. He was one of the astronauts that was picked to go, and he actually got locked inside of his simulator and got burned to death after he put a lemon on the door of the headquarters of NASA, basically saying like, it's a lemon, it's not going to work.
I'm sorry, can I have like proof of this story?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Yeah.
The weird thing is his family actually died after that on a NASA train tracks. It was super duper weird. Lemon put on NASA door by astronaut.
Okay. Sorry, you get. I'll Google that as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the play by play, and if you have any last point that you want to bring up, go ahead and think about it because it's 12:48. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the show. I went a little bit longer than I intended. So let me go ahead and pull it up because I gotta find the astronaut's name. Once I find the astronaut's name, it'll be pretty easy to find. My problem is that because I run into so many people, I'm terrible with names, but I'm really good with faces. Oh, was it Gus Grissom? Oh, okay.
Okay, let's see.
Okay. Yeah, he did hang the lemon for the landing's build up on his Apollo capsule. That's what it was. Among the astronauts, Grissom was the most critical of the problem-plagued Apollo program and the main Apollo contractor, North American Aviation. Shortly before his death, Grissom had taken a large lemon and hung it around the space capsule as the press looked on. So then, now that we've done that,
Wait,
what was
when
his
did he
name?
say the Earth was flat? He just hung the lemon up, right?
I didn't say he said the Earth was flat. I said that he was. I said that he thought that they weren't going to be able to go to the moon.
So so you think they offed him in that
Yeah.
accident?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
the
I did.
fact that he even said that he didn't think, like, aren't there other people who have said stuff that are like
Is that
similar to
really the
that? Like,
best? So is that really the best that you can do for this debate? Is say that because this person didn't say flat Earth specifically, then that means it's not
well,
really something that we can
thing is,
talk about?
my whole thing is like, where does the assumption? Because I'm thinking about it this way. Let's say the Earth isn't a globe. Now, who do I trust? I don't trust flat earthers now. They could be
I
lying and
wouldn't.
spreading bullshit.
I
So
wouldn't
how do
trust
I know which?
anybody.
Exactly. I don't trust anybody. I don't know the shape of the
I'm
Earth now.
glad. I'm really
It's a
glad that
complete
you
mystery,
came.
correct?
I'm really
Well,
glad that you
but
came to that. So,
yeah, but here's my thing afterwards. How do you know it's flat then? We don't know the shape of the Earth now. It's a mystery.
so here's the thing, right? You have arms, legs, thinking faculties, eyes, the ability to conduct experiments, and the ability to ascertain who you should and should not trust. You don't have to listen to other people. You can do experiments yourself. But the way that I like to judge things is that if it's an experiment that is open source, that I can do, that doesn't beg the question, that actually proves the thing that it asserts to prove, then I tend to think that that is a real experiment and that is a good experiment. And the more public that that experiment is, the more easy it is for me to believe the validity of that experiment. Now, that's not to say that somebody can't come along and prove the experiment false or that somebody faked it or something like that, like what happened with, um, oh man, what was his name? Hawking, when he did his helicopter curvature test. Absolutely laughable. Forgot to take the observer height into account with his calculation. So funny. But in any case, if it's a public experiment and it's done by people in the private sector and it's something that I can probably go do myself, then I'm going to trust that a little bit more than a big organization, and not just government really, because it's not just government, it's also big corporations I have a problem trusting because of the big profit motive. And
But
so
don't
yeah,
these
I
little
wouldn't.
guys have profit motives too? Like, for example, if I'm a flat earther, I'm trying to sell you on something, an idea, and there's probably a reason behind me trying to sell you this idea. Meanwhile, wouldn't it make more sense to be agnostic on the shape of the Earth and say I don't
So
know it all?
flat
Because
earthers by
otherwise
and
you could be.
large. So a big thing, a lot, at least a lot of the people that I talk to are open-minded in saying that, it is true that we don't measure curvature, so the evidence that we see does seem to indicate that it's flat. But that doesn't mean that we are closed off to other models of the universe or that we can't be convinced even of the globular model. It just means that, excuse me, it just means
Oh,
that it's
cool.
going to take a
Could I
lot.
ask you what would unconvince you of the flat Earth?
What would unconvince me of the flat Earth? If
Yeah.
I would say if core things, if we could show me gas pressure gradient without a container, not just using the Earth as an example, then that could be my evidence of space being able to be possible. And then if you could show me consistently that the Earth curvature calculator works for long distance observations instead of having to reify it with refraction, then I could possibly believe that the Earth is curving. And then if we could actually have some way of verifying the motion of the Earth, not talking about sidereal rotation necessarily, but any movement at all, if we could have some evidence of that and not one that begs the question by assuming that it's the Earth moving and not the sky, one that can actually isolate the variable somehow, then I can believe that we're in motion. So there's different things that need to be verified. It's not just one thing. If the curvature of the Earth got proved tomorrow, I would still be a geocentrist. I wouldn't then assume that the whole model of heliocentrism is correct.
Interesting. So you would always stick to your model, even if parts of your model were disproven, you default to it.
Well, I would stick to what we still have evidence for, right? And unless the evidence got debunked for that, right? So if evidence did get put forward that we're not the center of the universe and that we can actually measure the vector of Earth moving through space, then I would concede that we are in fact moving. But special relativity actually dictates that that's impossible.
That we're moving?
That it's impossible to measure the Earth's motion through space.
I mean, can't you? We're not moving at... Actually, what speeds are we moving relative to other celestial bodies? I don't
So we're
know,
moving
but I don't think it's that high.
66,000 miles per hour going
Oh yeah,
around our
that's not...
orbit. And then we're going some million miles per hour plus going around the Great Attractor. And then we have, of course, the sidereal rotation of almost, like, I think it's like 1,040 miles per
What is this
hour.
all relative to? What is this all relative to?
I mean, what do you mean?
You can't just say a speed. You say speed in relation to something, right?
So according to the globe Earth model,
No,
the
no, no,
Earth
no.
would
Oh,
be
wait,
going
maybe,
66.
okay, let me explain it a little better. When I say I'm running 3 miles per second, I'm talking about 3 miles per second relative to the ground. Because if I have two runners, one running 2 miles per second, one running 3 miles per second, these are really fast runners. I don't know why I'm saying per second.
So fast.
Yeah, the 3 mile one will be moving 1 mile per second relative to the 2 mile one, right?
Right.
Their
So,
relative speeds. So what is the
right.
relative, like, what is my frame of reference? What's zero?
Sure. So, for the Earth moving the 66,000 miles per hour in the globe Earth model, that would be in reference to the sun, I believe. The million plus miles an hour that we're moving through the universe would be in reference to, I don't know, something that they assume is not maybe the center of the universe. I don't know what the claim is there. And
Don't
then
you think that it's kind of weird that you're trying to debunk claims that you don't necessarily know the, like,
not as weird as somebody
exact
trying to
facts
come
for?
into not as weird as somebody trying to come in and debunk the flat Earth model, not knowing all the facts
Well,
of
I'm
the
not trying
flat
to
Earth.
debunk the flat Earth model. I'm just curious why you adopt any model. Because if you say, okay, we can't trust the round Earth model, why can we trust the flat Earth model? And then when I ask you for like an actual
Well,
cohesive model, you say, well, I don't know. We don't have all the evidence.
right. So again, so I stick to the things that we do have evidence for, and that is the lack of curvature, the lack of motion. So that's why I said I tend to lean towards the belief that we are a flat geocentric plane. That we are the center of the universe and that all the luminaries and stars are actually above us, not actually wrapping around this ball, that people like to call home. So again, I never claim to know 100% for sure. But what I can know is that there is not scientific evidence for the globular Earth model, and that is actually 100%
Well,
verifiable.
that's not true, I will say, but
Then what's
I am...
the So the last thing before we got to go, because I got 4% battery, make it really,
Yep.
really quick. What is your scientific controlled and variable of how you can determine the cosmology of the Earth?
Okay. So I'm actually going to talk about epistemology a little more in that sense, because what I'm kind of venturing into is if you want to, because if you want to know the actual shape of the Earth, you would just go out and do the experiments, right? Like, I'm sure you've gone out and done the experiments, right? Or,
I trust the people who have.
okay, wait, why do you trust the people who have? If you don't,
Because they've been repeated.
you haven't done yeah, but wait, you haven't repeated them though. Have you?
Yeah, that's why I said it's a belief. You're not going to catch me slipping or, saying anything that I don't mean. It's a belief. I'm choosing to believe certain people over other people. And, but again, one side, you have the NASA, which gets $60 million a day and still can't provide 100% scientific evidence to the shape of the Earth. And then the other side, you have the people.
Wait, okay. So you're saying it's because the other side has vested interests, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just confused in the sense that like, if because you disappeared, so I'm just gonna talk for a second. You believe these people, and you say they don't have any perverse incentives, but you don't know that. Like, I don't know if NASA has perverse incentives. That's why I don't just trust NASA blindly. I do.
Alrighty, folks, that was actually it for the debate. My phone had died right just then. So I do appreciate everybody coming out, tuning in. I am in the chat with you all. So we are going to be doing that every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for those who are interested in tuning in live on the TikTok. Otherwise, feel free to catch the entire live debate here. So we're going to be continuing to get more guests on, sharpening up the roster. What is that? So funny. All right, guys.